The little girl was originally from a wealthy family, but due to her extraordinary natural physique, she was stolen by an old Daoist during the centennial banquet. He took her back to the mountain as his personal disciple. Every time she meditated, detoxified her bones, practiced martial arts, or studied medicine. One day, the sect leader announced the bankruptcy of the sect. 4-year-old Nhu scratched her little head, not understanding what bankruptcy meant. The master said that a few days ago, he lost a bet and had to give up the mountain gate. Everything in the sect must become someone else's. Nhu was so anxious that she burst into tears. Does that mean they will have to live on the wind? The master said she wasn't a 3-year-old child anymore. She must learn to be self-reliant and independent. The master also prepared to travel the world. He even told her the truth about her origins. In fact, she was born into a wealthy family. At her 100-day banquet, the master saw her extraordinary bones and abundant spiritual roots. He took her up the mountain. He even left a note, promising to return her to them in 12 years. Nhu was speechless. This wasn't taking her, it was clearly kidnapping. The master was heartless, a wolf in disguise. The herbs he's been using to bathe her these years are worth at least billions. Nhu quickly tried to please her master by massaging her shoulders. She said anything was fine, just don't mention money. Before leaving, her master gave her the sect's most precious treasures. The Bien stone needles and the myriad cloud scripture. Only by comprehending the writing within would its power be revealed. Nhu's eyes lit up with excitement. These were things her master had forbidden her to touch. She had secretly touched them a few times before. Her bottom is all swollen from the spanking. Now, she finally belongs to her. The master unwillingly holds her in his arms. If it weren't for the sect's crisis this time, he would never have lied to send the little darling down the mountain. He only hopes to keep her safe from this danger. Nsifang can't help but cry loudly. She can't bear to part with her master and the sect. The master ordered his disciple, Lang Yeji, to come pick up Nhu. Lang Yeji had already packed her things. Nhu wanted to say a final goodbye to the master before leaving, but her senior brother said the master was old and couldn't bear to see farewells. Anyway, if it's meant to be, they will meet again someday. Actually, deep down, she also felt the master was unreliable. How could he let such a young junior sister leave the mountain? Although Nhu was very disappointed, but she didn't cause any trouble. She respectfully performed a bow in front of the mountain gate. She formally bid farewell to her master and senior brothers, including the little wolf, gray bear, and parrot in the back mountain. These are all her good friends. Nhu tied up her small bundle. Today, she, the disciple of the mysterious feather sect, is leaving the mountain. The 2 senior siblings walked for 2 days before arriving at the city. Our first stop is my senior brother's antique shop. No one here knows my senior brother's real name. Everyone respectfully calls him Boss Wang. He hides his identity to protect his junior sister. But Nhu was already captivated by the candied haws. Drool kept dripping from her mouth. He told her to wait under the big tree. He would inform her family to pick her up, and repeatedly warned her not to tell outsiders that he was her senior brother. Nhu pouted her lips in dissatisfaction. What's wrong with this senior brother? He left without even a cup of tea after arriving home. Nhu stood at a busy intersection, looking beautiful like a porcelain doll in ancient costume. Many uncles and aunts loved her very much. I want to take her home. But Nhu shook her little head. Only those who can call her name can she speak to. Just then, a loudspeaker nearby shouted, Jiangnan Leather Factory has gone bankrupt. The boss and his sister-in-law have absconded. Nhu remembered her master saying the sect had gone bankrupt. So did he run away after traveling all over the world? Master definitely ran off with the fairy from the neighboring mountain. That's why he abandoned her. Nhu got angrier and angrier. She crouched on the ground and sang a song about unloved vegetables. Just then, a convoy of luxury cars stopped in front of her. Dozens of men in suits lined up on both sides. The car door opened, and a beautiful woman stepped out. She's dripping in jewels and obviously very rich. Xia Yumaz cried, baby. She rushed over to hug Nhu. Nhu cautiously stopped her. Call me by my name first before you talk to me. Xia Yumaz also held back some information. She only said her surname was N and her name contained the character C. Nhu proudly nodded in response. That's right, she is Nhu, the only female disciple of the Ethereal Immortal Sect. Xia Yumuo instantly burst into tears. She hugged her and cried loudly. At this time, a handsome man got out of the car. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his handsome face cold and imposing. But his expression softened when he looked at Nhu. Is this child really his daughter? 4 years ago, a gust of wind blew past, and his daughter disappeared. She left a note saying she was destined to the Dao, and would return after 12 years. She asked them not to search for her or miss her. On the way back, Nhu sat between her parents, eyes tightly shut, meditating in silence. Xia Yuma carefully tried to bond with her, asking what she usually did on the mountain. And Siro replied calmly that she would get up at dawn to meditate. At sunrise, she sorts and picks herbs. After sunset, she studies pulse diagnosis and observing qi. Xia Yumuo was astonished. Does her daughter start working at just over 4 years old? And Siro quickly explained. She's been taking herbal baths and listening to the master's teachings since she was 3. Xia Yumuo touched her tender little face, filled with envy. Could this be the effect of the herbal bath? And Siro pressed her small face and reminded her. Master said the herbs are expensive and need to be returned to him. And Jingchuan's killing intent surged when he heard this. He dared to talk about money after taking his daughter. If he really meets that old man, he'll break his leg. But he's also very curious. Wasn't it supposed to be 12 years? Why is he coming down the mountain early? And Cyrus sighed helplessly, shaking her head. The sect went bankrupt. Master ran away with the immortal woman from the neighboring mountain. And Jing Xian, usually so cold, almost laughed out loud. Could that master be the one from Pigskin Street? Xia Yumuo suppressed a laugh and continued to ask her daughter. What did you learn in the mountains? And Cyril proudly counted on her fingers. Washing clothes, cooking, brewing medicine, burning incense, planting vegetables, driving away pests, dealing with beasts. She can do so much more. And Jing Xian and Xia Yuma were heartbroken for Qiu Cheng, a complete mess. Does she really have to do so much physical labor at such a young age? And Cyrus suddenly let out a soft laugh. She even plucks Master's beard, and stuffs dirty socks into Master's sleeves. And Jing Xian originally wanted to pat his daughter's little head and say a few comforting words. But upon hearing that, he silently withdrew his hand. Why does it feel like her master is in a worse situation? Meanwhile, in the Yin family's grand residence, old Madaman was anxiously pacing back and forth. Old Masterin, however, was still calmly playing chess. He advised her not to worry. When the time comes, it will come naturally. There's no use in rushing. At this moment, and Jing Xian and Xia Yumo walked in with Xiro. Xia Yumo taught her to call them grandpa and grandma. Old Madaman was so moved she teared up. She immediately rushed over to hug Cyrus. She was eager to make her some delicious food, but to her surprise, Cyrus said something shocking. She touched her face and said, Grandma, you're in danger of bloodshed. Old Master was stunned by the words. And Jing Xian and Xia Yumuo exchanged a glance. Their expressions immediately turned serious. However, the old master was amused by her little fortune-teller act. He asked, feigning cooperation, Little Master, is there a way to avert this? This touched upon Cyrus' area of expertise. She immediately took out a brush and yellow talisman paper. Let me show you all something eye-opening. A 4-year-old adorable child is a big shot in the Immortal Sect. Upon meeting, she said Grandma would face a calamity and might not survive. With just a random stroke of the brush, she could dispel the curse. With a flick of her little hand, she could make explosions appear out of nowhere. This move completely stunned the entire family, young and old. This child is absolutely fierce. And Cyrus claps her little hands. The bloodbath curse is broken. Mom and Dad are stunned. What kind of move is this? It's unscientific. And Cyrus proudly raises her little head. This is her way. Master said she's a naturally gifted body. Many senior brothers in their 30s and 40s aren't as powerful as her. Grandpa finally became serious, and formally asked for her Dao name. And Ciro proudly puffed out her chest. Piaomiao Mountain Sect, Kun Dao Yu Ro Daoist. Grandpa, holding his sleeve, attentively wiped the little one's sweat. A Dao name is something you can only claim if you have some cultivation. Hearing this, and Ciro smugly said, Master said so. According to seniority, any other sect members who see me, have to call me grandfather. The grandfather gasped in surprise. He didn't expect his little granddaughter to be so powerful. He quickly picked up the little cutie and gave her a big kiss. Today, he was going to bask in his granddaughter's glory. Everyone burst into laughter. For a moment, the atmosphere was harmonious with laughter and joy. At this moment, the nanny walks in with the young master. Grandmother tells Nsiru that this is her younger brother. The little one is still learning to walk. He wobbles and falls toward Nsiru. He waves his little hand, wanting his sister to pick him up. But he can't speak yet. He can only make baby noises. And Ciro pinches his little face in displeasure. That stinky little brother actually wants to hit her. The little guy suddenly shivered. He looked like he was about to cry. And Cyrus quickly let go in fright. Could that stinky little brother be trying to scam her? Xia Yumuo got a diaper and changed it for the little guy. She told her that her brother had just peed, not to worry. And Cyrus flicked her little brother's head. The little one cried loudly in pain. And Ciro secretly chuckled to herself. Finally, she saw a child younger than herself. In the future, she would protect him when happy, and bully him when upset. But the little one didn't hold a grudge. He quickly smiled and asked his sister to hold him. He secretly took Ciro's hair and handed it to the assistant. Let him take a paternity test. He has been disappointed countless times over the years. He only hopes for a good result this time. but looking at his daughter's sweet and obedient appearance, and Jing Xian decided that even if she wasn't his biological daughter, he would still raise her by his side. At this time, Ansira was playing Lift Up with her younger brother. With a wave of her little hand, "Go away," the younger brother was thrown into the air, over 10 meters high. He laughed joyfully, but the family members were so scared, their faces turned pale. They almost knelt before the little daughter. Fortunately, Ansira was skilled in martial arts. She easily caught her brother. The younger brother now preferred this sister who could make him fly high. The siblings were close, full of love and happiness. Mom and Dad were so scared their hearts almost jumped out. With such a talented daughter, who knows who can keep her under control? It's going to be a headache in the future. But Grandpa was very proud. His little granddaughter is so amazing at such a young age. Who knows, there might be even more surprises. Grandma, on the other hand, didn't feel any joy at all. She only felt scared. Just then, the butler announced, "Lunch is ready." Grandpa kindly beckoned the little one, following him to eat. And Ansira watched Grandpa bend over, coughing and walking with his hands behind his back. She followed suit and imitated him. She actually did a pretty good job. Everyone took their seats in order. Looking at the table full of delicious food, Ansira couldn't help but gasp, her mouth wide open in surprise. Saliva started dripping down. Grandfather wanted her to take off the cloth bag. It was too exhausting to carry it while eating. But Ansira tightly clutched the small bundle. It contained the treasures of her sect and she couldn't let it out of her sight. Grandpa saw how nervous she was, and quickly reassured her that he wouldn't touch her treasure. Ansira then breathed a sigh of relief. She turned her head and saw more dishes being brought to the table, all of which were foods she had never seen before. Each one gave off a mouth-watering fragrance. The lobster was bigger than Ansira. The sea snail was as big as a basketball. These are foods Ansira has never eaten before. In the past, she could only eat grass in the mountains. She anxiously asked when she could start eating. After Grandpa gave his approval, Ansira immediately waved her chopsticks and started eating. She leaned over the table, spinning around, and stuffed her mouth. Her little mouth was munching happily. Mom was next to her, helping by picking dishes and peeling shells. Grandma was amused. She was curious about what she eats at the monastery. Ansira, complaining unhappily, "Just some vegetables and mushrooms, and we eat that every day. Sometimes, we only get a meal every 3 days." Everyone was shocked upon hearing this. Isn't this child abuse? Dad clenched his fists in anger. As long as I see Roro's master, I must flay him alive. But what everyone doesn't know is, those vegetarian dishes are full of spiritual energy, and are incredibly nutritious. Moreover, Daoist fasting for 3 days without eating is normal, and they will also take many invaluable pills during this time. Poor master unknowingly took the blame. He became the big bad guy who wouldn't feed Roro. The Yin family held a lifelong grudge against him for breaking his leg. At this moment, Roro picked up a piece of meat and put it in her mouth. But the next second, she painfully spat it out. Mom was startled. Did the beef not taste good? Ansira then told everyone that there are 4 prohibitions in the Daoist sect. She can only eat relatively pure foods. For example, mutton, venison, and fish. Grandpa quickly instructed the butler to write it down. He must pay attention next time he prepares meals. Ansira still complained dissatisfiedly. The food is all good, but it's just too bad. The butler was dumbfounded when he heard this. This is a top chef hired at a high salary from a 5-star hotel. "Miss, your mouth is too sharp." If Chef Wu hears this, he'd probably be so angry he'd vomit blood. But Ansira proudly said, "In a couple of days, I'll make a nice meal for everyone. Let them open their eyes." Dad, Mom, Grandpa, and Grandma all clapped in support. What Xiao Ruru makes can never go wrong. After finishing her meal, Ansira ran off to wash her hands. Unfortunately, she's too short to reach the sink. She can only look helplessly at the butler beside her. The butler is about to be melted by her cuteness. He quickly picks up the little one, but is shocked to find the little girl so light, as if holding a ball of cotton. Ansira seriously washes her little hands clean, with her eyes squinted happily. The butler was extremely envious. He really wanted to take such a cute little girl home. After finishing her wash, Ansira began to meditate. Her grandmother felt heartbroken. So young, yet so disciplined. I wonder how many hardships she's endured. Then her mother took Ro to her bedroom. The room was decorated in soft pinks, full of childlike charm. Looking at the room full of stuffed dolls, Ro was stunned. This is too childish. She's no longer a 3-year-old child. Her mother even arranged for a personal nanny for her. Ro happily propped up her feet. The nanny is basically a maid, right? The senior brothers on the mountain all have maids. She usually only feels envy. It's as if she's also a maid herself. But the priority right now is to keep the sect's treasure safe. Her parents prepared the best safe for her. But Ro could smash it with a slap. It needs to be something sturdier. So, her dad had to take her shopping for a safe. but the little cutie is incredibly strong. The sellers are all scared out of their minds. Is this little kid here to challenge us? A 4-year-old little cutie coming down the mountain for the first time. And goes straight to a safe company to challenge them. She could smash an 8 million yuan safe with a single slap. But the little cutie just wants to wear a robe. She can even do weather forecasts. Meditating and cultivating while facing the lightning. The sect went bankrupt and the master ran away. The little girl carries the sect's greatest treasure. It must be stored in the most secure place. The best safe at home. But a gentle slap could shatter it. Her parents had no choice but to bring her to the most reputable safe company. The little girl walked in with an air of indifference. The salespeople were trembling in fear. Could this family be here to cause trouble? They finally found a job. They mustn't get fired. But then she realized she was overthinking. The little girl didn't need her introduction at all. She hopped and skipped around, picking things out herself. In the end, she set her sights on the most expensive limited edition item in the whole store. The saleswoman's eyes lit up with excitement. If this sells, she'll earn at least 100,000 in commission. This little guy is a VIP. Suddenly, she became full of energy and couldn't stop talking. Sir, let me tell you all about it. This safe is waterproof and fireproof. It can also withstand missiles, poisons, and nuclear radiation. It has dual locks, fingerprint and retinal scan. Even the president uses this model. It's specially priced at only 6 million. Dad hesitated for a moment, but the little girl looked at him with pitiful eyes. She insisted on having this model. Dad immediately decided to pay. He immediately had the safe delivered to his daughter's room. The salesperson was overjoyed. She is willing to personally make all these commissions. Then, her mom smiled and asked Ro to go buy clothes. She insists on dressing her daughter up like a delicate little princess. She can't be wearing a robe every day, looking like a little nun. But Ro stubbornly refuses to change. She will only wear robes for the rest of her life. Her mom was struck like she had been hit by lightning. Her poor little daughter must have been brainwashed. Dad could only advise her to take things step by step. Her feelings are the most important. So he took Rura to the home of top designer, Master Chen. He wanted Master Chen to create a few different versions of robes similar to the one she was wearing. Master Chen initially didn't think much of it. After all, he was a world-renowned designer. Who would have thought that as soon as Master Chen saw the little girl, his eyes instantly lit up. He almost wanted to kneel down on the spot. He was especially amazed by the Daoist robe on Ro. Her mother didn't think much of it. It's just a plain Daoist robe, right? Master Chen disdained her for not recognizing the value. This fabric is made from top-quality celestial silk. It's made with golden spider silk as thread. Its strength is stronger than a bulletproof vest, and it only needs to be washed once a month to stay spotless. It's automatically dust-proof, dirt-resistant, and self-cleaning. The craftsmanship has long been lost. If this were put up for auction, it would start at least at 10 million. My parents were both stunned. Didn't they say that old raggedy thing was bad? Now even the bad guys are this rich. Master Chen keeps exclaiming in shock. This bag is worth 6 million. This hairpin is worth 3 million. That jade pendant is worth 10 million. This entire outfit is at least 30 million. Mom is so shocked her jaw almost dropped. She's a high society lady, dressed in custom-made attire. With the jewelry and accessories, it adds up to over 1 million. That's still less than what my daughter has on her. I didn't expect my daughter's awful master to be so generous. Little does she know, her father is so mad he's about to vomit blood. But no matter how nice the clothes are, you can't wear the same set every day. Her mother advised her to get a few more custom-made outfits to rotate. Ruru also doesn't want to damage the clothes her master gave her, so she can only nod in agreement, just reminding them not to use overly vibrant colors. And absolutely no blood red. Master Chen immediately rubbed his hands together eagerly. He wanted to have the Taoist robes embellished with diamonds and gold trim. The materials ranged in price from 100,000 to 600,000 yuan per set. Dad immediately declared in a flamboyant manner, 1 set in each color. Each set should be made to the highest specifications, at 600,000 yuan per set. Cici, he's Roro's own father. How could he be outdone by that old Taoist? Even if his craftsmanship is inferior, he should still choose the most expensive one. Soon, a top-of-the-line safe costing 600,000 yuan was wheeled into Roro's bedroom. Under the guidance of the bodyguards, Roro set up the fingerprint lock and iris scan. This was her first time seeing something like this. Then Roro, hands behind her back, dismissed the bodyguards with a wave of her hand like a little adult. She had them all leave the room. She thoughtfully closed the door behind them, but Roro still carefully observed her surroundings, unable to shake her uneasiness. She made sure no one was nearby spying on her. Only then did she put the precious heirloom from her master into the safe. Then she carefully engaged multiple locks. Roro finally relaxed. She had finally completed her master's request. After hiding the treasure, Roro skipped out to play. Meanwhile, Grandpa and Grandma also heard about today's events. They were instantly shocked, speechless. They never imagined the little one's treasure was so valuable. Hearing his wife mention those materials, they are still extremely rare things. But Grandpa pointed out sharply that the little one was willing to buy a 6 million yuan safe, which means she wants to store something even more valuable. Mom could hardly believe it. This child, what on earth had she gone through to have such unbelievable things happen? At that moment, Ro ran over joyfully to tell everyone, "It's going to rain, hurry and bring in the clothes." But Grandma didn't see the bird clouds. How could it possibly rain? They didn't know. Roro is very accurate when it comes to weather forecasts in the sect, and she enjoys it very much. As soon as she calls out, her fellow disciples would quickly run to bring in the clothes and herbs. Grandma doesn't understand why she's so happy about the thunder and rain. She's so incredibly happy. Little does she know, Ro is happy because, every time it thunders, her cultivation speeds up. Because her spiritual root is the powerful purple thunder of the heavens, she can not only enhance her strength through the thunder and lightning, but also summon the strongest purple thunder of the heavens. The sect's senior brothers fear her sudden awakening most of all. Can't control the thunder of God anymore. After all, being struck by the purple cloud thunder, there's a high chance of being reduced to ashes. Rora doesn't know how to explain it to her grandmother. She just waves her little hand, bouncing and skipping off to practice with the lightning. Grandmother looks at the natural science in her hands, and casually throws it away. This thing can't explain the strange nature of my granddaughter at all. Soon, Dad received the paternity test results. It showed that Ro is indeed his biological daughter. Dad was so happy, he started dancing with joy. He quickly took a picture of the results, and sent it to the group to announce. Relatives and friends were both shocked and happy. The little princess has finally been found. Grandpa and Grandma were also overjoyed. They had always liked Ro. Now, they were even planning to throw a welcome party. They wanted to announce to everyone that Ro was the little princess of the Yin family. But at this moment, Ro was feeling down. She had taken several baths, but still felt uncomfortable. She especially missed the medicinal bath her master had prepared for her. So, Ro dejectedly went to find Grandpa. She wanted to go out to buy medicine. Grandpa immediately got anxious. He thought his little granddaughter was sick. When she said she wanted to take a medicinal bath, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He immediately took her little hand, and carried the little one to the largest Chinese medicine store of Ungshi Group. She could choose any rare herb she wanted. Actually, she was secretly planning to show off her precious granddaughter to her other old friends. She was sure it would make them so jealous they'd go crazy. This little girl is only 4 years old. She can't write, but she can change the feng shui. Even a 100-year-old Taoist would kneel before her. She can summon the wind and rain, and call down divine thunder. She knows medicinal herbs like the back of her hand. In order to take a medicinal bath, Grandfather brought Roro to his own pharmacy. Just tell me what herbs you need. Roro pointed with her little finger. Rosin, bird's nest, snake blood, scorpion, snake tongue grass. She listed hundreds of them. Grandfather laughed proudly. She's only 4 years old and can remember so many. This is the legendary Prodigy. The manager is sweating nervously. There are several medicines she's never even heard of. The store definitely doesn't have them. But this is no challenge for the little genius. With a quick turn of her mind, she finds an equivalent alternative. Grandpa's eyes light up, as expected of his self-reliant granddaughter. At such a young age, she already has the demeanor of a queen. Roro even personally walked over to the medicine cabinet. She opened the drawer to check. Unfortunately, the quality of the herbs here is too poor. They're not as good as the herbs she made when she was 3. But Grandpa said this pharmacy belongs to the family company. She immediately wanted 2 sets of cabinets to be placed in her room, so she could store all her own herbs in them. Grandpa, of course, wouldn't be reluctant. He was just worried that her room wouldn't fit. Rora didn't hesitate at all and threw all her toys away. Grandpa's mouth twitched at once. He had originally planned to give her a house, but this little girl's interests are really something special. Later, Grandpa kindly had someone prepare a bathtub. He arranged to have everything packed and sent home. Finally bought the herbs. Grandpa eagerly looked at Ro. He wanted to take her out for a walk. Choose the latter. Ro was utterly helpless. She could only agree to this old child. Grandpa immediately burst into joyful laughter. He was going to take his lively little granddaughter to show off to those old friends. Soon, Grandpa brought Ro to the place where his old friends drank tea and played chess. Lao Zhou and Lao Zhao were both Daoist disciples. Seeing him with such an adorable little girl, they all teased him. Kidnapping someone else's child is one thing, but you even dressed her in a Daoist robe. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Grandpa proudly told them, this is our little princess. I even taught Ro to greet the 2 grandpas. But Ro, usually so well behaved, stood there with her arms crossed. Grandpa's face showed some embarrassment. It's not very polite for his granddaughter to act like this towards two old friends. But Roro said in a milky voice, "They are all feather guests. I can't call them grandpa." Old Zhou and old Zhao were upset. Their status is incredibly prestigious. Not to mention calling them grandpa. Even a child offering to shine their shoes is an honor. Roro smiled upon hearing this. She tugged at Grandpa's pants leg. She asked him to tell everyone his self-chosen title. Grandpa thought for a long time before remembering. It's Daoist Yu Rou from the Kun Dao of the Ethereal Immortal Sect. Old Zhao and old Zhou were both stunned. Only those with high cultivation can have a Daoist name. And just any item on the little girl's waist is a Daoist treasure. The two were so scared that they quickly jumped up. They rushed to the little girl. A respectful 90-degree bow. They called out, "Lord, please forgive our inadequate greeting." The little girl stood proudly, arms crossed. She had already said it. Any feathered guest who sees her must address her as Lord. Old Zhao and old Zhou nodded and bowed, treating the little master as an honored guest. They personally presented a variety of delicate pastries. When she saw the food, the little child instantly lost her imposing demeanor. She was happily chewing and enjoying her food, but the two old gentlemen didn't dare slack off at all. They respectfully poured tea and offered water. They asked what path the master was cultivating. Ro is skilled in medical talismans and spells, excelling in everything. Unlike the two of them, who only know how to fast. The main content is setting up altars, burning incense, beating drums, and chanting sutras. This ritual can be used to pray for the removal of disasters and the granting of blessings. However, the old master doesn't understand why everyone calls his granddaughter master. Old Zhao tells him that in the Daoist sect, strength is revered. Regardless of gender, those with high cultivation are addressed as master. Both of them only know how to offer prayers for blessings. The mysterious immortal sect practices higher-level Taoism. They excel in medicine, talismans, fortune-telling, alchemy, everything. Then old man understood. No wonder Roro is so amazing. So she's affiliated with a powerful sect. The two old Taoists saw a Xianmen grandmaster for the first time. They couldn't help but try to ingratiate themselves and take a look. Grandpa said they were all her good friends. He asked Roro to give them some face. Roro then took a brush out of her bag, with specially made charms. She draws a talisman with a flick of her wrist. Her technique is skillful and fluid. She forms her fingers into a sword finger gesture. After chanting an incantation, she throws it backward. Instantly, a strong wind sweeps past, blowing everyone's eyes open. It feels like they're in the center of a tornado. Grandpa still thought Roro was just putting on a show, and didn't need a lighter to burn paper or use small tricks. He didn't expect his granddaughter to be so amazing. She could even summon the wind and rain. Old Zhao and old Zhou were even more excited. Turns out the Daoist teachings weren't lying. There really are immortals. In the end, the two of them respectfully bid farewell to the little Daoist priest, and guaranteed to collect the finest tea tomorrow, to deliver to the door as a sign of respect. Grandpa laughed excitedly. I didn't expect those two arrogant old men to have such a flattering day. After returning home, under Roro's direction, the maid prepared the medicinal soup and poured it into the bath. Then she drove them all out, taking a medicinal bath alone. Although the medicinal effect is weak, it's far better than plain water. She leisurely played with her little duck, but she still missed her master a little. That old geezer wouldn't be having too much fun with the immortal lady, and forgotten her precious disciple, would he? At this moment, the father confirmed that Roro was his daughter. Finally, he could care for his daughter without reservation. Dad happily pushed open the door. He was about to get close to his precious daughter, but the scene before him made his jaw drop. He saw Roro washing clothes by herself in the old-fashioned way. Dad immediately felt heartbroken and almost spat blood. How could his precious daughter do such rough work? He immediately glared at the nanny with a dark expression. Why did you let the young lady wash clothes by herself? What's the point of paying to hire these people? The nanny was scared and kept shouting injustice. The young lady wouldn't let them help at all. She said that anything brought by the sect wasn't to be touched by anyone. That's when her father calmed down a bit. As long as it's not the servants bullying his daughter, it's fine. Although he felt heartbroken for his precious daughter, he still respected her wishes. But the next second, Roro came out holding a basin and said to him, "Third master, you're back." The father was instantly struck by lightning. This feeling it's so much like a little maid. It seems I really need to have a serious talk with her. The family of three sat facing each other, and Jingxian earnestly instructed Roro to call him Dad. But Roro said she couldn't. This is for his own good, and Jingxuan's heart instantly shattered. Does the daughter still refuse to accept him? Xia Yuma was also deeply saddened, her eyes filled with tears. She dreamt of hearing her daughter call her mom. Roro helplessly explained that she really can't call her that. This is for their good fortune. They can only call them Xiangu and Emojia. And Jingxian has also noticed something is wrong. Could it be that something bad will really happen if it's called? The daughter is skilled in magic and can summon the wind and rain. She insists on it, so there must be a reason. In order to show respect to them, Ruru decided to cook for them herself. Her parents were stunned. What could a 4-year-old possibly cook? When Master Wu, the 5-star chef, heard about this, he was instantly furious. A little wild girl dared to pick a fight. A 4-year-old toddler, not even as tall as the stove, is going to be the chef at a high society banquet. The food is so fragrant it makes people want to swallow their tongues. The 5-star chef was moved to tears. He wanted to kneel down and beg the little toddler for guidance. Since Ro returned home from the mountain, she has never called them mom and dad. She only calls them Xian Gu and Emojia. Although it's for their good fortune, mom and dad are still very sad. To show her respect for them, Ro decided to cook a meal for them herself. At this time, the Yin family had specially hired a high-paid chef. Chef Wu, a 5-star chef, is losing his temper. A country bumpkin from the mountains actually dared to say his cooking was bad. Chef Wu wanted to chop her up like meat. He furiously chopped. Then his assistant came to tell him that the young lady wanted to cook herself. Chef Wu was instantly furious. I must teach this wild girl a lesson. But when he saw the adorable little pink bundle, Chef Wu's heart instantly melted. How can the young lady be this cute? Quickly, take the little cutie to place somewhere else. The kitchen smoke might harm the young lady's delicate face. But she gently patted her chest, and said she came to cook. Chef Wu was instantly stunned. She's not even as tall as the stove, how can she cook? Little did he know, Ro was well prepared. She had already asked the nanny to bring 2 stools in. Today, she was going to make yangchun noodles. She needed scallions, ginger, garlic, and lamb. The ingredients were all ready, but Chef Wu didn't dare let her cook. She's so young, she probably can't even lift the pot. If he gets burned, the butler will probably skin him alive. It's really too dangerous. Who would have thought? Ro patted his arm, with mischievous eyes. She promised to reward him with a small bowl later. Chef Wu couldn't help but laugh. He's experienced so much, what hasn't he tried? The young lady is a bit overconfident, isn't she? Even boss in Jingxian has spoken up. Chef Wu had no choice but to reluctantly give up his spot. But Ro asked them all to leave. Chef Wu was stunned when he heard that. Is she afraid they'll steal her skills? Without saying a word, Dad waved everyone away. He stayed behind to watch over his daughter. But to his surprise, Ro even wanted him out. Dad suddenly became embarrassed. What secret is it that even Dad can't see? But he's just her father. He could only helplessly leave the kitchen, and thoughtfully close the door behind him. Only then did Ro take out a special jar. Inside was a 5-flavor stone. Each one represents sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and salty. As long as you take the stone out and soak it in a small bowl, it will release different flavored seasonings. This is Master's treasure. It was actually Ro who secretly took it while he was asleep. That night, she made a meal with it. It was so delicious, she almost swallowed her tongue. Even after so long, Ro still misses it. Today, she's going to make yangchun noodles. Just use the naturally salty small stones. Ro first soaks the stones in a bowl. Then she skillfully prepares the ingredients. Cut the scallions into strips, ginger into slices, and garlic into minced pieces. Boil the noodles in water until they are 80% cooked, then take them out. Put them into the lamb soup and cook on high heat. Then take the 5 spice stones out of the water. Pour the soaked seasoning liquid into the soup. Soon, a pot of fragrant yangchun noodles was ready. It made her feel incredibly proud. Who says a little kid can't cook? The little one clapped her hands and shouted, "Mission accomplished. You can come in now." And Jingxian had been waiting outside, worried that his precious daughter might face any accidents. Hearing the call, he immediately pushed open the door. A wave of fragrance hit him in the face. The source was that bowl of plain noodles. It was simply a feast for the senses. Chef Wu had never smelled such a fragrant aroma. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Ro jumped off the small stool. She told Jingxian to carry the noodles out. She called the whole family to come and try it. She even specially left a small bowl for Chef Wu. Soon, the yangchun noodles were served on the table. Each member of the Yin family got a bowl. Even the little brother, just over 1 year old, was so excited he was dancing. He couldn't wait to eat his noodles. Ruru smiled and greeted everyone to hurry up and try it. Grandpa praised it non-stop. The fragrance is simply unlike anything I've ever smelled. Grandmother even shed tears of happiness. She felt like she had become 10 years younger. Mom was captivated by the rich yet non-gamey tender lamb. It was as if she could see the beautiful scene of a green pasture. Dad quickly swallowed a big bite. The chewy, bouncy texture made the wheat aroma burst in his mouth. It's like strolling through a field of golden wheat. This feeling is truly amazing. For a moment, the entire restaurant echoed with the slurping sounds. Everyone was gobbling it down, completely disregarding any image of a refined aristocrat. All were happily soaring in the paradise of food. even my 1-year-old brother. With unclear speech, they kept praising the noodles for their fragrance. Sighing with satisfaction, they patted their full stomachs. This is what true delicious food is. The whole family even licked their bowls clean. It felt like they had never eaten such delicious noodles in their lives. Sure enough, my granddaughter is clever and skilled. Even my little brother was moved to tears. Holding his little bowl, he wanted another serving. Even this CEO, who has tasted the most exquisite delicacies, thinks his daughter's cooking surpasses even Michelin-starred chefs. Ro immediately decided to cook frequently from now on. Before, she occasionally stole the 5-spice stone to cook, and was always spanked by her master for it. Now she can finally eat these delicious dishes every day. But she suddenly missed her master. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Chef Wu had just finished that small bowl of noodles. He was immediately overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down. This deliciousness truly shook him to his core. He felt that his 20 years of culinary career had all gone to waste. This small bowl wasn't even enough for him to fully appreciate the excellence of the young lady's cooking. Next time she cooks, he'll definitely try to butter her up. Try to eat a little more. Early the next morning, Roro started meditating and practicing. Grandma watched with immense pride. Her granddaughter is just so amazing. After Roro finished meditating, she immediately rushed over to wipe her face. If only her grandsons could be this diligent. Roro was somewhat curious upon hearing this. Isn't it just Grandpa, Grandma, Dad, Mom, and my little brother at home? Grandma chuckled and laughed heartily. The Yin family is a large family. Roro's eldest uncle and aunt have been doing business in the capital. They've been there for half a year. They have 2 sons. One is studying in Germany, the other in the United States. My aunt and uncle are traveling. They'll be back today. Their son is studying at university in Zhonghai. He's quite the playboy. He'll also be back today to welcome Roro home. Roro nodded thoughtfully. It seems she'll be seeing quite a few relatives today. Then she must cook personally. I'll prepare some good things to treat everyone, but the priority right now is to make some health-boosting soup. I need to help adjust the bodies of the relatives. Grandma's heart bloomed with joy upon hearing this. My little granddaughter is such a thoughtful little darling. Roro gently opened both large medicine cabinets. She prepared a large batch of medicines. There were remedies for promoting blood circulation, dispelling wind, and unblocking meridians. There are also herbs that warm the yang, strengthen the kidneys, replenish energy, and nourish the yin. Roro directly packed a big bundle and handed it to the nanny. She asked her to reduce 100 bowls of water to 50 bowls. This should be enough for everyone to drink. Then she took out a water hyacinth. It was filled with a lot of fasting pills. Roro took one and handed it to the nanny. She asked her to crush it and add it to the medicinal soup. It has the effect of invigorating the spirit, strengthening the body, and prolonging life. But those who haven't cultivated can't withstand too much of the medicinal power. Roro, her face stern, sharply commanded. No matter who it is, only 1 bowl per person. If anyone disobeys, let them come find me. The nanny's eyes shone with admiration. Miss is so domineering. Is she really a little girl of 4 or 5 years old? She's clearly only 4 years old, yet the chairman wants to kneel before her, just to get a bowl of sweetened water. 1 sip, and he's completely entranced. Today is the first day and Sairu is back home, and meeting her relatives. So she made various health soups as gifts. Who would have thought that Grandpa's 2 good friends would rush over eagerly to seek an audience, and bring with them their collection of various top-quality teas. Their obsequious, flattering behavior was nothing like that of a chairman of a major corporation. Although Roro is only 4 years old, she has seen many rare and exquisite teas. This so-called collector's edition tea in a plain jar, for her, it was barely edible. Considering their sincerity, she reluctantly accepted it. Old Zhou and Old Zhao seized the opportunity to ask her to give them some instruction, but the sect's teachings cannot be easily passed on. Roro didn't want to be spanked by her master. She could only reward each of them with a bowl of health soup. Consider it a return gift for the tea. The 2 old men exchanged a glance. Products from Xianmen are bound to be exquisite. They quickly ran to the kitchen. They directly pushed open the kitchen door and rushed in. Meanwhile, the kitchen was bustling with activity. Under the guidance of the nanny, the maids were simmering dozens of pots of health soup. The fragrant aroma made the 2 old men widen their nostrils. This wonderful taste was like the soul soaring in the sky. I heard it was Miss Roro who sent them to collect the medicine. The nurse immediately followed Roro's instructions, and crushed the fasting pill into the broth. Then, she gently stirred it. Soon, an aura-filled fragrance filled the air. Lao Zhou and Lao Zhao couldn't hold back any longer. They lunged forward. Holding the large bowls, they gulped down the liquid. Instantly, they felt decades younger. They immediately recognized this as the legendary Dao tea, a treasure that grants longevity. The 2 men shamelessly begged for another bowl. They had drunk too quickly before to appreciate the taste. It's like Zhu Beiji eating ginseng fruit. But the nanny firmly remembered Miss Ro's instructions. Only one bowl per person. They immediately offered 300,000, just begging for an extra bowl each. The nanny was stunned speechless. She never expected Mrs. Medicine to be so valuable. Now she dared not disobey Mrs. Wishes even more. They can only tell the young lady themselves. Lao Zhou and Lao Zhao sighed repeatedly upon hearing this. That young Daoist priest isn't easy to talk to, but for the sake of longevity, the two men still shamelessly sought Ro out, hoping she would bestow another bowl, but Ro waved her little hand, saying they would not be able to handle drinking anymore. Living longer is a good thing, but too much of anything is bad. Their faces turned ashen with sudden fear. They secretly rejoiced that the nanny had stuck to her principles. Otherwise, who knows what bad consequences they would have faced. At this moment, a beautiful woman carrying a bag of gifts approached. She smiled sweetly at Ro. She is Ro's third aunt. Ro immediately handed her a bowl of health soup. Aunt San took just one sip. She instantly felt refreshed. The obesity that had troubled her for years disappeared at once. She heard this was a soup medicine that could prolong life and enhance beauty, and it had long been lost to time. Aunt San's eyes sparkled with admiration. She never expected the little girl to be so amazing. Ro, however, found their reaction exaggerated. It was just a bowl of ordinary medicine. At that moment, a luxury supercar pulled up at the entrance. A rich second-generation heir with bleached hair, casually pushed open the door and entered. He was Tang Xiao, the son of the third aunt. Seeing Meng Tuanzi meditating on the sofa, he knew that this was his newly found cousin. He immediately pinched her little face. He liked teasing his little sister like this. Grandma saw this and was so angry she was about to explode. She directly punched him on the head. This little devil was practically asking for it. He dared to bully his sister like that. Tang Xiao, however, didn't care. It was just a joke. Grandma poked his forehead hard with her finger. Let him feel for himself how painful it is. Ro is a child prodigy who can control the weather and predict the future. She's not someone a spoiled rich kid like him can bully. Tang Xiao didn't believe this nonsense. How could such a little kid be that powerful? Grandma must have watched too many TV dramas. Grandma angrily slapped him. Is it really that hard for the brat to admit others are outstanding? Ro is definitely not an ordinary child. After spending more time with him, he'll understand. Tang Xiao's expression became serious upon hearing this. Could it be that everything Grandma said is true? Is that little cutie really that impressive? He quickly grabbed the butler to ask secretly, is that little brat really as amazing as they say? The butler was startled. You little brat shouldn't shout like that. That's someone even the chairman of a large corporation has knelt before and shown respect to. Tang Xiao was instantly dumbfounded. Did he really run into someone powerful? This won't do. He quickly thought of a way to make amends. He immediately ran over, apologizing with a smile. Cousin didn't mean it just now. It's because you're just too cute. Cousin couldn't help but make a joke. Please forgive me, cousin. Ruru turned her head away, coldly sneering. She wasn't that easy to fool. Tang Xiao wasn't angry either. He expected a humble apology. You don't hit a smiling person. He pestered and begged relentlessly. But it's a standard skill for a rich second generation. He was very skilled at it. Candy, milk tea, ice cream. He used it all to please his little cousin. It doesn't matter if she's not interested. There's hot pot, barbecue, and sauerkraut fish. Race car movies and amusement parks. Elixirs, magic pills, and ancient scrolls. There's always something she'll like. Anyway, novels are all a bit exaggerated. Those who practice immortality love these things. Ruru's expression stiffened when she heard that. Isn't the ancient scroll master's treasure? How could this bad cousin know? Ro immediately slapped him. Tang Xiao was sent flying 300 meters. He spat out a mouthful of blood. It rolled on the ground. He started foaming at the mouth. He looked like he was about to die. The whole audience was shocked. This is going to be a murder. And Jing Xian was also dumbfounded. Sure enough, my hunch was right. The Yin family is going to be in an uproar. But Ro didn't care how shocked everyone else was. She directly performed a flying leap, and kicked Tang Xiao hard in the stomach. Almost sent her to the afterlife on the spot. Caro is still beating him up to force a confession. She keeps asking how he knows about the heavenly book. Grandma is speechless. This kid just won't listen. He insists on provoking Caro. Tang Xiao is being punched and kicked by his cousin. It hurts so much he's tearing up. He's only seen this kind of thing in fantasy novels. He doesn't know anything, okay? Ro was instantly speechless. What on earth is a novel? Grandpa and Grandma quickly pulled her away. They patiently explained that a novel is just a storybook. Ro then realized that she seemed to have wrongly accused him. She quickly took out a pill. She directly shoved it into Tang Xiao's mouth. Then with a flick of her little hand, she had someone carry him back to his room to rest. He'll be as good as new after lying down for 3 days. The butler quickly called for people to carry him away. Everyone was left dumbfounded. They didn't expect this little girl to be so powerful at such a young age. For a moment, everyone was gossiping about Ro Ro, as the hosts, and Jing Xian and his wife. But no one paid any attention at all. The two of them gave a helpless smile. Being the parents of a little strong-willed girl is truly a mix of joy and sorrow. The 4-year-old cutie spends 10 million a day, yet her father still feels guilty, thinking her allowance is too little. Little did they know, they would soon encounter a fake monk tricking people. The little one only needed a talisman to drive him mad. Yesterday, Ro Ro had just returned to the Yin family, just because he pinched his cousin's cheek. He ended up beating him into the hospital. Uncle looked at his cousin with glee. Serves him right, always fooling around outside. Dad quickly pulled Ro Ro over to apologize. No matter what, it's wrong to use violence. Aunt smiled as she looked at Ro Ro. My precious niece is just too cute. Just give her a kiss. I won't hold today's events against her. Dad was so angry he cried. He hasn't even kissed his daughter's cheek. It's just awful. Then the uncle advised his nephew to definitely get along well with Ro Ro. The nephew was speechless. She's a practitioner of the Dao, we can't afford to offend her. After the dinner party incident, Ro Ro officially returned to the Yin family. The family held a meeting for her. They discussed whether she should be sent to kindergarten. In the end, her father strongly opposed it. He wants to help Ro Ro adjust to modern life first. Her father arranged for a full-time nanny for her, 2 bodyguards, a nanny van, a mobile phone, and a 30 million yuan bank card. Everyone agreed on this unanimously, and they even wanted to add a little more. The next day, Ro Ro went out to have fun. Her first stop was a nearby antique shop. As soon as she entered, she saw her senior brother, bored, leaning aside playing on his phone. He immediately slapped the table and said jokingly, Boss Wang, stop slacking off. Business is here. The senior brother was also stunned when he saw her. Why did the little junior sister suddenly show up? Could something have happened? When he saw the group of bald, burly men behind her, he was even more puzzled. My mouth twitched. Why does my junior sister seem like a mob boss? Actually, Ro Ro came here to buy herbs. She told her senior brother about the herbs unavailable in ordinary pharmacies. Her senior brother immediately knew she was buying ingredients for a medicinal bath. He told her to come back in 3 days to collect them. The senior and junior siblings pretended to haggle over the price. Then Ro Ro generously handed over her card. Senior brother, your envious face has turned green. Junior sister has actually become a little tycoon. She spends 1 million without even blinking. Actually, Ro Ro just wanted to ask, how are master and the senior brothers? Senior brother returned the card to her. He secretly told her to eat and drink as she pleases. Just grow up happily. Then, on the back of the card, he secretly attached a note. It had his exclusive phone number written on it. This is only for contacting junior sister. Ro Ro happily smiled from ear to ear. Immediately, she had her senior brother running in circles. She bought a huge pile of herbs, and also white. Spent another 200,000. The bodyguards were so angry that their veins were bulging. The owner of this antique shop is so unscrupulous. He even cheats children. I must tell the president and have him dealt with when we get back. But Ro Ro paid without a word. It's too late to say anything now. Meanwhile, Dad was working at the company. He suddenly received a spending alert. His daughter had spent over 10 million yuan right after she left home today. It seems he has to work even harder to successfully raise his daughter until she turns 18. Roro's way of exploring the world is through eating. And because she's so cute, people crowd around her, taking photos like crazy. Suddenly, she saw a person dressed like a Taoist priest walk by. She was immediately thrilled. It turns out there are other angels in this world. She immediately ran after the Taoist priest. At this moment, the old priest arrived at the door of a store. The manager eagerly welcomed him, because their store's security cameras had captured strange footage over the past few nights. They wanted to ask him to perform a ritual to drive away evil. The old priest immediately set up a table to prepare for the ritual. He began shouting and jumping around, like a street performer doing tricks. He finally roared, summon the heavenly soldiers and generals to slay the demon. Ro couldn't help but jump out and expose him. Shameless scoundrel. Why are you pretending to be a Taoist priest? You have no Taoist aura whatsoever, yet you dare to impersonate a celestial master. The Taoist priest forced himself to remain calm. He told her to get out immediately. Don't disrupt his incantation. The manager was also startled. He paid a hefty sum to hire him. If it fails, it'll all be wasted. But unexpectedly, Ro spoke righteously, accusing the old man of impersonating a celestial master. Today, this Daoist will teach him a lesson. His bodyguard quickly urged him to calm down. There are so many con men like this, we can't possibly manage them all. The CEO had repeatedly instructed him before he left this morning. If necessary, hold Miss back and stop her from causing trouble. But Ro was already completely furious. She had to deal with anyone who insulted the Daoist sect. But the bodyguard tightly held her back. Before upholding justice, she was just a 4 or 5-year-old child. And this is a civilized society. Hitting people would land her in the police station. That was why Ro Ro had no choice but to give up, decided to use a more civilized approach. The bodyguard immediately knelt down. He let the young lady write on his back. Ro Ro took out the talisman paper. She dipped the brush in cinnabar. With a swift motion, she finished it all at once. Soon, a spirit talisman was completed. Finally, Ro Ro gave the Taoist one last chance. As long as he takes off his robe and apologizes, they'll let him go. But the old man is fearless. He directly told her to go back home and nurse. Don't think you're invincible just because you've watched some cartoons. Ro Ro was waiting for those words. Her eyes lit up upon hearing this. She immediately grabbed the talisman, and muttered an incantation. A hurricane swept in, yet the talisman in his hand activated on its own. The old Daoist was so shocked, his jaw almost dropped. This person really has real skills. These are things he himself can't even do. With a flick of the talisman's flame towards him, several cold, sinister breaths suddenly rushed over. They drilled into the Daoist's body. The old priest seemed to have been startled by something. In the next second, he became dazed. Drooling and grinning foolishly, he kept jumping around, shouting, "There are ghosts! Help!" Ro Ro stood by, gloating. "Aren't you supposed to be able to exorcise demons? Why don't you save yourself?" Ro Ro was preparing to go home. Her bodyguard was still worried that she had scared people. There would be trouble later. But Ro Ro said the effect was only temporary. It would return to normal tomorrow. Apparently, people have 3 heavenly lanterns within them. Extinguishing one would cause one to see demonic things, or suffer a mental breakdown. After a quarter of an hour, the yang energy will recover. The sky lantern will be lit again. It will return to normal. Then they continued shopping. Suddenly, they passed by a store. There was a long line outside. Ruru curiously took a glance. The bodyguard immediately explained that this is called milk tea, and very thoughtfully, he immediately bought it and brought it over. Ro Ro only took a sip. She instantly fell in love with the flavor. But after drinking too much, she felt her face stiffening. This stuff really isn't as good as what she makes herself. Ro Ro couldn't help but miss life in the mountains. Although there were few people, it was full of human warmth. Then, while strolling along, she unexpectedly arrived at a culturally protected building. Ruru mistook it for a dojo. Curious, she ran in to take a look. Little did she know, as soon as she entered, she saw an old Taoist priest sleeping soundly nearby. When he heard the noise and woke up, he saw a little girl with a group of bodyguards, her entire appearance screaming wealth. He quickly greeted her to do business. Fortune-telling costs 10 yuan, divination 100. But a little girl jumped onto the table, looking down and questioning him. Why doesn't a junior in gray robes greet a senior? A 4-year-old child was actually sitting in judgment at the Taoist temple. The 80-year-old Taoist priest was grateful, his head knocking loudly against the floor. The sick child was listless and rigid. But the little girl slapped him hard. The child immediately became lively and energetic. In no time, everyone was scrambling to see the doctor. This is a little god who saves the suffering and the needy. Roro was originally just window shopping. She unintentionally saw this dojo. She went in and saw that it was dilapidated and too simple. The only Taoist priest was sleeping soundly in a corner. He wasn't making any effort at all. Ruru wakes up the Taoist priest. Then she jumps onto the table and sharply questions him. Why doesn't a young Taoist in gray robes kneel when he sees a senior? The Taoist priest was instantly stunned. If the child is ill, take her away quickly. But Ruru swiftly gave him a smack on the head. With such little skill, you dare to shout. The Taoist priest was instantly furious. Whose brat is this? If you don't take him away, he's going to start hitting someone. But the bodyguards remained indifferent. And they said, try hitting him and see what happens. Rose swaggered and had someone tell him about her noble identity. The bodyguards all said in unison, Mrs. Yu Ro, the Kuan Dao Daoist of the Ethereal Immortal Sect. The Taoist was so shocked that his jaw nearly dropped. Isn't this the legendary Supreme Sect? He immediately knelt down with a thud, looking at the various treasures on Ruru, the hairpin, the Daoist robe, and the jade linglong filled with spiritual energy. These are all treasures of the Immortal Sect. The Taoist couldn't help but drool. It's all his fault for being blind. He couldn't even recognize the arrival of the Dao Master. Ruru frowned in disgust upon hearing this. He can't even sense the Dao aura. He really has no insight. The Daoist's heart was pierced and shattered. He never had much talent to begin with. And only elders of the Stone Gate are capable of sensing Dao aura. How could a common Taoist priest? Roro couldn't help but feel some sympathy for him. Poor aptitude is one thing, but even the Taoist temple where he serves is so desolate. Everything is dilapidated. He'll probably starve to death soon. The Taoist priest immediately felt ashamed. It's all because his own abilities are so poor. I can only rely on my Taoist certificate to get some subsidies. Ro suddenly felt curious about his lineage. How could he be so useless? The Taoist priest answered respectfully, sobbing. He is the 76th generation disciple of the Mai Xinxiang school of the Zhengyi Dao. Ro, considering that they were both Taoists, decided to help him attract some worshippers. From now on, he would come to sit in the hall every 1st and 15th of the lunar month, helping the pilgrims solve various problems. The Taoist could hardly believe his own good luck. The mysterious immortal path is a powerful technique of a major sect, capable of defying the heavens. He immediately asked respectfully, what skills does the young Taoist possess? Although Ro is young, she is proficient in medical charms and incantations. In comparison, the Taoist has been practicing for decades. This little one has actually mastered 4 languages. And that proud look on her face, it's definitely not a lie. The Taoist priest was instantly excited. He almost wanted to let Ro start seeing patients tomorrow. But Ro gave him a sharp flick on the forehead. At your age, you still haven't learned your lesson. From now on, she'll only come on the 1st and 15th of the month. And she'll leave after noon, before sunset. The Taoist priest's head buzzed with pain from the impact. Yet he was also subdued by Ro's imposing manner. The young Taoist priest is so imposing for someone so young. Truly a capable person. Back home, and Jingxian learned that his daughter was going to a dilapidated Taoist temple to take up residence. He worried about his daughter being wronged, but no one could interfere with Ro's decisions. I can only move the best furniture at home to my daughter. I'll support her with whatever she needs. All kinds of precious wooden furniture are being packed inside, and it has to be done carefully. If anything gets scratched or damaged, I can't afford to pay for it. Seeing the newly renovated equipment in the temple, the prestige instantly skyrocketed. The Taoist priest has already brought the pilgrims to enjoy the spectacle. Everyone immediately believed his words. As expected, the important person has arrived. Soon, a stretched luxury car stopped at the entrance, with bodyguards shouting loudly, Master Yu, the immortal from the mist, has arrived. With impressive momentum, Yu got out of the car and walked over. But no matter how impressive she looked, she was still a 4-year-old child. The pilgrims instantly hesitated. Can such a young child handle it? However, Ro showed no sign of fear. She directly walked up to the main seat and sat down, calmly pouring tea and water for herself. She was completely unaffected by the crowd's remarks. The visitors, on the other hand, seemed uncertain. They looked towards the old Taoist priest for help. He immediately explained that one's ability is not determined by age. This young Taoist priest has great skills. At this time, an old woman brought her grandson to see a doctor. 6 months ago, the child was smart, lively, and full of energy. But after a night of thunder, he became like a lost soul, completely unresponsive. He wouldn't respond to anyone. They went to the hospital, but the doctors couldn't find anything wrong. Ro only glanced at him. I knew what the problem was. I immediately told the bodyguard to flatten his hand. I dipped it in tea and drew a symbol on his palm. Then I ordered the bodyguard to slap the child's face. Hard. The bodyguard was very obedient to me. Without saying a word, he walked over. The old woman was so scared that she quickly hugged her grandson. Why is she hitting someone right from the start? Ro told her the child is possessed. This can drive the evil spirits out of his body. The old woman is worried that her grandson will go crazier from the beating. The onlookers also think it's too cruel and unreliable. But Ro doesn't insist. If you believe, it will work. If not, it's up to you. The old woman is really worried about her grandson. He could only grit his teeth and let her treat him. The bodyguard grabbed his arm. A slap was fiercely swung. The child was sent flying directly. The crowd was stunned in shock. They thought he had been knocked silly. But then the child suddenly started crying loudly. His expression seemed much more lively. He threw himself into the old woman's arms, crying, Grandma, bad people hit me. This was the grandson's first time speaking in 6 months. The old woman excitedly cried out, Little fairy. The onlookers were also shocked. The ethereal fairy trace truly lives up to its reputation. Immediately, they rushed forward in a swarm, wanting to see the first consultation. They almost fought over a ranking. Ro impatiently shouted, If you keep arguing, neither of you will be treated. The 2 old men were startled. Immediately, they embraced like brothers. They pushed and yielded, showing unusual deference. In the end, the elder one saw first. He hadn't had a good night's sleep in years. Whenever there's wind or rain, demons and monsters come knocking. Protective amulets and chanting won't stop them. Ro, however, remained remarkably calm. She wasn't afraid at all. She simply asked him to extend his hand. After taking his pulse, she immediately understood the situation. Then she had the nanny write down the prescription, and gave it to him to take, 7 days in a row. Everyone listened with great respect. There was an inexplicable sense of awe. After watching, Ro didn't hesitate for a second. She immediately called the next one up. No extra words were spoken. The old man, however, was deeply impressed. As expected, a little immortal is domineering and not to be offended. The bald man immediately rushed up happily. He has had a streak of bad luck in the past few months, losing every time he gambles. He suspects he's been cursed. Roro told him to get lost without saying a word. How dare a gambler come here? The bald guy tried to ask again, but he was immediately dragged out by the bodyguards. The 4-year-old little girl is a big shot from the Immortal Sect. She discovered that her company was surrounded by sinister energy. With just a single talisman, it turns a curse into a treasure. Otherwise, my dad would have been killed without ever knowing. And the little girl enjoys helping others. After sitting in for just one day at the rundown temple, she revived its incense and brought it back to life. The Taoist priest was so excited, he felt like soaring through the sky. As long as the little Taoist is here, this decaying temple will soon prosper and thrive. But Ro doesn't let just anyone see her. Just now, she had a worshipper thrown out. The Taoist priest shamelessly asked for advice. Why was this particular worshipper kicked out? Ro could immediately tell that the person was filled with dark, sinister energy. He was just a major villain. The Taoist quickly started massaging Ro's shoulders and back. She couldn't be exhausted, that little money tree is too important. As the time was almost up, Ro stretched and was ready to leave work. She also instructed that no one was allowed to touch her things. The old Taoist was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. Indeed, the Taoist sect had not abandoned him. Soon after, Ro arrived at the in-group. As soon as she entered, she won the affection of all the employees. Meanwhile, her father, and Jingxian, was still working hard. He was arguing fiercely with the managers. But the moment he saw his daughter enter, his demeanor instantly softened. However, she gently saw that his violent outburst was because the place was filled with too much negative energy, forming a malignant spirit. The employees were instantly stunned. Mr. An's daughter was actually a fortune teller, and Jingxian immediately told them all to leave. Then he humbly asked his daughter for advice. He asked if there was any solution. Roro frowned and thought for a moment. Then she came up with a solution. She began to busily move around the room, placing more jade stones here, adding some flowers and plants there, and Jingxian was deeply moved. With someone like Xiaomi and Reo caring about him so much, he could die peacefully. In the end, Roro cleaned out a batch of antique vases and porcelain. She had the bodyguards take everything out and throw it away. Then she ignited a talisman. With a flick of her hand, she shouted, "Break." It was as if there was an invisible lock in the room. It was instantly shattered, and Jingxian couldn't see anything, but he still felt the room temperature rising. Ro was also relieved that she discovered it early. Otherwise, within half a year, Xiangu would surely die, and Jingxuan's expression immediately turned serious. It seemed someone was deliberately trying to frame him. He wondered whose handiwork it was. They actually managed to reach into the company. Looks like there's an insider. And Jingxian felt both relieved and grateful. He immediately decided to take his daughter out for a meal. Roro instantly became excited. She was really looking forward to eating. And Jingxian took his daughter straight to a 5-star hotel. The little girl in a robe had a kind of classical Eastern beauty. The request caused a commotion. And Jingxian kept his daughter's dietary habits in mind. After ordering the food in advance, he confidently asked his daughter what she thought of the place. "Do you like this elegant and refined style?" But Ro looked utterly displeased. "It's flashy and ostentatious." And Jingxian had a terrible headache. Father and daughter have very different tastes. It looks like he won't be seeing his daughter in a princess dress. Later, he suddenly noticed the brilliant roses blooming nearby. With deep emotion, he said his daughter is like a flower. He, as her father, is the vase protecting her. He can shield her from the wind and rain. He was so moved that tears started to fall. But Roro remained calm. She's not a 3-year-old child. She already understands the world, the family, and the teacher. And Jingxian immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. He was completely defeated by this precocious little girl. In the end, he could only invite his daughter to enjoy the food. After all, the little girl is quite the foodie. Sure enough, Roro's eyes lit up when she heard this. Is this as delicious as the noodles she made last time? And Jingxian was left speechless by the teasing. There's probably no food in this world that can compare to the noodles made by my daughter. I was on the verge of tears. It's so hard to get close to my daughter. Cultural differences are even deeper than generational gaps. But music knows no boundaries. Hearing the soothing, sorrowful violin music, Ro immediately became melancholic. She didn't even know where Master had run off to. I wonder if the Taoist nun on the mountain next door is taking good care of Master. What if Master runs into an enemy? Could Master end up as a street performer? At the same time, Master suddenly sneezed repeatedly. Without even needing to calculate, it was clear that the disciple was badmouthing him. But he couldn't care about that right now. The Master gathered all the disciples together. This time, the demonic sect, led by Kai Hang from the illusory sky book, has surrounded their sect. He was determined to lead his disciples in a final fight. The disciples were all filled with righteous indignation, swearing to leave no enemy alive. At that moment, a disciple came to report. Over 100 members of the demon sect broke through the outer formation. They will now attack the mountain. The master immediately flicked his whisk. He ordered the activation of the ancient Xianmen formation. We are to charge out and fight the enemy to the death. This time, life and death are uncertain. The master was most worried about Ro Ro. I wonder how that useless disciple is doing now. Little did he know, Ro Ro's small bite was so refreshing. The assassin was enjoying the dessert with great relish, and Jingxuan's heart was almost melted by the cuteness. Sure enough, his own daughter is adorable. But no matter how cute she is, she still has to go to school. Although his daughter's skills are high, there's too much of a cultural difference with others, making communication difficult. Rura doesn't know what school is. She only cares about whether school is fun. And Jingxian nervously told a harmless lie. School is the most fun thing in the world. You can learn English and make good friends. Ruru agreed to go to school. The next morning, her cousin brought a full plate of cake. Make breakfast for Ro, bowing and scraping, with a smiling face. Just hoping that my little cousin won't be angry anymore. Still circling around Ro, saying all kinds of sweet words as if they were free. The main idea is to beg for her forgiveness. Otherwise, Grandma will beat him into a meat bun. Seeing that Ro didn't respond, my cousin almost cried like a baby. Ro suddenly took a deep breath and finished work. Opening her eyes, she saw so much delicious food. She immediately got so hungry that her mouth watered. She picked one up and stuffed it into her mouth. She didn't forget to ask her cousin what he had just said. Her cousin instantly had a dark expression. It turned out he hadn't heard anything. But to please his cousin suggested taking her to the beach. Ruru loves seafood. She agreed as soon as she heard about the sea. Cousin was very pleased to hear that. As expected, there was no woman he couldn't handle. After all, Grandma had once given him an ultimatum. If he didn't cheer up his cousin, he'd be cut off from pocket money. Now, he had finally made up with his cousin. Don't worry about being scolded anymore. The two of them then arrived at the beach. Ro tossed off her shoes and stepped onto the soft sand. She skipped around, collecting seashells. Cousin was pleased with himself for having foresight, choosing a place that his sister would like. But then, a commotion came from the distance. It turned out that the popular movie star, Su Zian, had also arrived at the beach. The fans excitedly gathered around to ask for autographs. After finally managing to send the fans off, Su Zian immediately spotted Ro. She was astonished by her appearance. She wanted to take a photo with Ro and post it online. It would definitely attract a lot of attention. Fans would think she was gentle and kind. But just as she got a little closer, I was stopped by the bodyguards. I was instantly furious. I immediately called my sugar daddy for backup. A 4-year-old child prodigy, because she can use magic, became a target for a perverted rich kid who wanted to exploit her. He didn't just want her money, he wanted her as a pet. The little prodigy slapped him into the hospital for a long stay. But the pervert's family is powerful and wants revenge. The whole family's here to protect the little one. Even if it means going bankrupt, they won't let anything happen to their little princess. Originally, her cousin brought her to the beach to try and win Ro's favor. They just happened to run into the popular actress, Su Zian. Su Zian saw how cute Ro was, and wanted to take a photo with her to boost her followers. But before she could get close, she was stopped by the bodyguards. Su Zian revealed her identity as a popular actress, but her cousin didn't bother to pay her any attention. The little princess of the Yin family is everyone's darling. How could she allow a stranger to approach? Su Zian felt embarrassed. She was instantly furious. She immediately called her sponsor, saying there was a little Lolita here, as beautiful as a fairy. After all, young Master Feng is the most notorious playboy in Zhonghai. He doesn't believe the other party would dare to refuse him. Soon, young Master Feng arrived with his entourage in a grand procession. Seeing her soft and adorable appearance, his heart instantly bloomed with joy. She was this cute when she was a child, so she must be even more beautiful as she grew up. Young Master Feng immediately rushed over with his people. Who would have thought he was stopped by the Anja bodyguards? Young Master Feng immediately shouted angrily, "Do you even know who I am?" Tang Xiao didn't care who he was. No one was allowed to disturb her little princess from playing. She immediately ordered the bodyguards to stand firm. Whoever dares to come over will be beaten up. Young Master Feng wasn't an easy target to deal with either. Seeing this, he also lost his temper. He led his men to start a fight. Anyway, he had more people on his side, so he wouldn't lose. Seeing that the Yin family's bodyguards were losing ground, Ro immediately stepped forward, and ordered them to retreat. Feng Xiao, with a playful smile, tried to take Ro away. This beauty is a veritable money tree. Now, I will make money by promoting children's clothing brands. When I grow up, I'll become a lover for my own boss. By then, wouldn't it be a win-win for both wealth and beauty? Mr. Feng got so excited just thinking about it that he nearly wet himself. Rura disgustedly shoved him away. This perverted man is really disgusting. But Mr. Feng refused to give up. His title as the most unruly young master of Zhonghai is not self-proclaimed. Ro's cheeks puffed up in anger. She couldn't be bothered to waste words with the beast. She directly grabbed his hand. With a flick of her wrist, she sent him flying. Young Master Feng screamed as he flew for 700 or 800 meters. The family members cheered in excitement. They all praised the young lady for being powerful and impressive. Young Master Feng, however, landed on a distant beach. It just landed right behind Su Zian. All the bones in her body were twisted. Everyone quickly rushed her to the hospital. Ro clapped her hands, looking disgusted. What's the point of saving scum like her? Tang Xiao, however, was so scared her head hurt. This is really a big mess now. She quickly made a call to report to Jingxian. The cousin sent the youngest son of the Feng family flying with a single strike. Now, young Master Feng is bleeding uncontrollably, and his life is in danger. And Jingxian was struck as if by lightning. He felt like he was about to fall apart. The Feng family has an incredibly powerful background. The family is on high alert. They quickly called a family meeting to discuss. The matter has been fully investigated. It was the Feng family boy who started the trouble. But the Feng and families have always been rivals, inherently incompatible. Now that the Feng family boy is unconscious, things have become even more. And the Feng family is ruthless and has underworld connections. Ro will likely face fierce retaliation. But the whole family agrees that Ro is right. Apologizing is impossible. Uncle also thinks Tang Xiao is wrong. She didn't protect Ro well enough. Meanwhile, Tang Xiao is shivering outside the door. It's been an hour, and they still haven't reached a conclusion. Doesn't that show how serious this is? And he has a bad feeling about this. Soon, the conference room door opened. Sure enough, the aunt grabbed Tang Xiao's ear. She dragged her into the room. It was obvious she was about to get a beating. Tang Xiao cried out for her cousin to save her. But her cousin was stunned. Grandpa gently patted her head. He told her not to worry about it. Her family will always stand by her side. Xia Yuma tightly hugged Ro. The whole family loves to make her happy. Everything here is harmonious and joyful. In contrast, Tang Xiao, who was running for her life next door, looked even more miserable. Tang Xiao was hiding everywhere, trying to escape her mom's pursuit. She was gasping for breath while still getting beaten up, her head covered in bumps. Only her cousin was injured in this world. At this moment, senior brother called. He told Ro that the herbs were ready. Ro immediately took her team to get the herbs. The grand procession looked like they were about to go into a fight. After arriving at senior brother's shop, senior brother only glanced at her. He already knew this young lady had caused trouble again. Ro was somewhat surprised to hear this. How did senior brother know? But senior brother had seen it all along. Her bodyguards increased from 2 to 8. And these people aren't as skilled as Ro. It's obvious it's not to protect her, but to stop her from causing trouble again. Ro scratched her head sheepishly. Senior brother is as amazing as ever. Soon, senior brother handed her the packaged herbs. Ro suddenly remembered she also needed talisman paper. Senior brother immediately took out a stack and handed it to her. He, who usually loves money, didn't even take any this time. He just wanted her to leave quickly. They had to avoid suspicion. Afterward, Ro went to find Master Chen. Master Chen made many sets for her. Different styles of robes. Colorful and dazzling. There are elegant, fitted princess styles. And also the heroic, striking heroine styles. Each robe comes with a matching belt, shoes, and socks. And they are made with the highest quality craftsmanship. But to Ro, these clothes are just average. She immediately had them packed to take home. After returning to the family mansion, Ro immediately sensed something was off as soon as she got out of the car. There were many unfamiliar vehicles parked at the entrance. She immediately instructed the maid to bring the herbs and clothes inside. She herself went to the main hall to find someone. At that moment, the Feng family's family advisor, Zi Hong, was causing trouble with his people. He was threatening the family to hand over the murderer. Otherwise, they would be waiting for trouble when the weather turned cold. And Jia insists on defending the young lady. Su Fu argues his case, refusing to yield an inch. But the Feng family isn't known for being reasonable. Bai Hong bangs the table, using her power to intimidate. Just as war is about to break out, she runs in softly. I'll take responsibility for my actions. I hit them, so what? Bai Hong waved her hand impatiently. Little brat, what right do you have to butt in when adults are talking? Go back and do your homework. And they even mocked the family for being to actually let a child take the blame. Su Fu spoke frankly. Miss said she did it, so she did it. Bai Hong was furious. Are they treating him like a fool? How much power can a little baby have? Su Fu was worried it might scare the young lady. He immediately asked her to return to her room and rest. Ro, of course, refused to be a coward. But the bodyguard was concerned that speaking to scum like him would harm her dignity. Without saying a word, he picked up the young lady and ran. And Zihong was also so angry her teeth were itching. In the past, whenever he showed up, the other party would definitely kneel and beg for mercy, apologizing. I didn't expect the Yin family to be so tough. The problem is, young Master Feng is still in the ICU at the hospital. His life and death are still uncertain, and he's still in critical condition. At this moment, old Zhou and old Zhao burst through the door. They were panicking, trying to find Ro. Little Dao, help. There's a monster. A 4-year-old little cutie was invited to catch the monster. Don't let her small size fool you. She can catch an 800-pound monster fish and turn it into a dish. Even a 100-year-old Taoist priest would kneel before her. But she was forcefully carried back to her room by the bodyguards. Suddenly, old Zhou and old Zhao rushed over in a panic. As soon as they met, they started crying and complaining. The Taoist master is asked to step in and save us. There's a monster. To everyone's surprise, Ro's eyes lit up when she heard this. Where's the monster? She loves monsters the most. The two old Taoists were stunned. Then they mentioned an old friend. Recently, their family has been having nightmares every day. They asked those two to invite the senior brother to perform the ritual. Little did they know, during the ritual, they were knocked unconscious by a gust of demonic wind. They were both present at the time. When the black wind swept through, they felt a chill run down their spines. So they decided to ask the skilled Taoist master for help. Ruru didn't say a word, directly summoned the bodyguards to set off, watching a large group of people leave in full force. Master Feng from the Feng family still found it strange. At this point, his subordinate secretly told him, it was the little girl who injured young Master Feng. Bai Hong just wanted to slap him. How could a little baby cause such serious injuries? Is he joking? But all the bodyguards came forward to testify. It was that little brat who did it. At this point, Zihong had no choice but to believe it. What could be fake about something witnessed with your own eyes? He was instantly enraged. Why didn't these bastards say anything sooner? They wait until everyone is gone to speak up. Meanwhile, the senior brother mentioned by old Zhou and old Zhao. He lay unconscious on the rattan chair. Demonic energy constantly emanated from his 7 orifices. The homeowner kindly wanted to call an ambulance, but the yellow-robed Taoist priest said it was demonic energy entering the body and that he couldn't be moved rashly. He needed to wait for a master to help. At this time, Lao Zhou excitedly announced the good news first. They had already invited the Taoist master. Everyone excitedly looked over. 2 lines of tall and strong bodyguards cleared the way, escorting a little girl of 4 or 5 years old inside. The Taoist priest in yellow robes was instantly stunned. He circled them, still wondering where the Daoist master was. He didn't notice Ro and the bodyguards behind him at all. His face was so dark it could drip ink. Lao Zhou and Lao Zhao were awkwardly covered in black lines. How can they be so clueless? What should we do if we offend the Taoist master? But the bodyguards are quite sharp. In unison, they loudly shout. The Ethereal Immortal, Kuan Dao, and Yu Ro Daoist have arrived. The Taoist in the yellow robe was instantly stunned. Kuan Dao is a woman. There's only one girl here. Could it be her? But thinking about it, the Misty Immortal Trace is a large sect. They can't afford to offend them. Regardless of whether it's true or not, let's bow first. Immediately, he approached with a flattering smile, bowing and scraping. We welcome the young Daoist master's arrival. The owners on the side were all dumbfounded. It seems the world of Taoism is truly surreal. A group of Taoist monks in yellow robes surrounded Ro and brought her in front of her senior brother. They asked her to help heal him. Ro took one look and immediately recognized that demonic energy had entered his body. She immediately took the jade linglong from her waist. She placed it on her unconscious senior brother's forehead. With one hand, she formed a seal and muttered incantations. Suddenly, a large amount of demonic energy surged out from his 7 orifices. Ro shouted sharply and sealed it. Everyone was both shocked and delighted, praising endlessly. Truly deserving of being a master from the ethereal path. Ruru, on the other hand, was holding Yulinglong, ecstatic with joy. Such an abundance of pure, extreme energy, this is a real windfall. Then, she suddenly slapped her senior brother's face. Her senior brother abruptly opened his eyes and sprang up. He was even shouting in fear, there's demon energy. The fellow disciples quickly reassured her. The demonic aura has been completely cleansed by this young Taoist priest. He even saved his life. His senior brother quickly bowed to show his gratitude. He was very respectful to his savior. But Ro knew the matter wasn't over yet. There was no demonic aura here at all. Instead, there was something of extreme regardless of whether it's fish or turtles in the pond. She's determined to get it today. Saying this, she pulled out a talisman. She flung it forcefully towards the lotus pond. The talisman, along with the flame, swirled above the lotus pond. Instantly, the pond water churned violently, like a dragon drawing water. The yellow-robed Taoists were all dumbfounded. In their lifetime, they finally witnessed true Xianmen Taoist arts. Ro clapped her hands. There we go. The evil energy has been dispelled. Next, I need everyone's help to catch the little thing. The Daoists exchanged uneasy glances. Could the little thing she's talking about be a demon? For a moment, no one dared to step forward. Roro comforted them, saying not to be afraid. She will lure the demon out soon. Everyone, just find a basket or something to catch it. Saying this, he pulled out another talisman. He yanked the water monster upwards. The pond water began to churn violently. The next second, a silver fish weighing over 800 jin was pulled out of nowhere. In comparison, Roro's small size was negligible. She, in her small frame, directly pounced on it, trying to subdue the large fish, but it couldn't be held down at all. The bodyguards immediately unbuckled their belts, and rushed over to bind the silver fish tightly. Only then did Roro breathe a sigh of relief. Tonight, she was in for a treat. She immediately rewarded the 2 bodyguards who performed the best, with boiled fish for dinner tonight. Brother Huang Pao respectfully thanked her for saving his life, but Roro didn't hear anything at all. She just wanted to hurry back to eat the boiled fish. Old Zhao and Old Zhou thought that since Daoist had been so nervous about the silver fish, it might be something even more precious than the longevity soup. They immediately shamelessly followed to get a taste of the fish. The Daoist in yellow robes looked on in confusion. What's so exciting about a demon fish? Shouldn't it be burned with karmic fire? And how do you cook something that big? Do you even have a pot that big? After returning home, Roro went straight to the kitchen. She found Chef Wu and asked him to make the demon fish into a sauerkraut fish. Chef Wu was shocked by the 800 jin silver fish. He had never seen such a big fish before, but he reacted quickly. He immediately ordered people to prepare the fish. She cuts the fish, removing the head and tail, and slices it to make sauerkraut fish. While Roro is only responsible for adding the final seasoning, Chef Wu secretly smiles. Last time, he didn't get to see the cooking process. This time, he finally gets to learn the secret. At this moment, Roro runs back to her room, rummaging through the cabinets. She finally finds the 5-flavor stone, but this time, she's going to use the green sour-flavored stone. Carefully dipped it into the water. It only took 5 minutes. A bowl of clear water turned into a vibrant green. Roro gently took out the sour stone, took a sip to taste it. Instantly, a burst of sourness hit the top of her head. This is the sourness that makes it delicious. Roro ran to the kitchen. I was just about to show off my skills to the young lady, but Roro climbed up on a small stool, and poured a bottle of bright green liquid inside. Chef Wu was instantly dumbfounded. That thing looked exactly like poison. However, out of blind confidence in the young lady, he mustered his courage and took a sip. He was instantly amazed. The sour and spicy broth, with its crisp and sweet texture, has a rich, smooth, and delicious taste. It truly makes you want to keep eating. Softly, she reminds him to divide the sour fish soup into 3 portions, 1 for the family, 1 for the bodyguards, and 1 for the kitchen. Chef Wu hears this and chuckles. Then, everyone gets a small sip. The rest is yours. But the bodyguards behind him are watching intently. How could he possibly hog such delicious food? A 4-year-old cute kid activates the secret manual of the Celestial Book. In minutes, he'll be invincible. Unfortunately, the little kid can't read. Immediately, he cries sadly. Why do we still need to study while cultivating immortality? Originally, Roro caught an 800-pound demon fish yesterday. She immediately made a delicious sauerkraut fish using 5-flavor stone. The Anja family quickly gathered in the dining room. As soon as the sauerkraut fish was brought out, the smell made everyone's mouths water. Cousin Tang Xiao had already heard about Yangchun Noodle's legendary tale. Today, he was determined to try his cousin's amazing culinary skills. Who would have thought that after just 1 bite, it would instantly be hailed as divine? The fish is tender, smooth, and crispy, as if eating sea cucumber. The fresh fragrance in the fish after the winter solstice explodes in the aftertaste. The aroma overwhelms you, invading the taste buds. Tang Xiao is so moved that tears are streaming. This taste is simply amazing. He couldn't wait to scoop up a spoonful of the soup. The moment it entered his mouth, it felt like a gentle breeze sweeping over the hillside. It made him feel so refreshed, he couldn't help but want to sing out loud. Tang Xiao was completely captivated by the deliciousness. He decided that for the rest of his life, he would cling to his cousin for support. Although everyone else had already tasted Roro's cooking, they were still excited by it this time. On the other side, the bodyguards each held a small bowl, and squatted on the ground, eating with great appetite. They were in awe of the young lady's exquisite cooking skills. Even if they weren't paid, they would remain loyal to her, heart and soul. The competition in the kitchen was even fiercer, but for such delicious fish slices, fighting again would be worth it. Roro, in particular, ate until her stomach was round and full. She was so stuffed she could barely sit up. She quickly began meditating to digest the spiritual energy contained within the fish. This supremely and pure silverfish would have no effect on an ordinary person, but for a cultivator, it would transform into true qi and be absorbed by the dantian. Just then, a brilliant purple light shone beside her. Ro suddenly opened her eyes. Following the light, she looked to the side. She found the source was the blank book. Ro didn't understand what had happened. Curious, she picked up the book and opened it. She was shocked to find that the previously blank book was now filled with writing, but only the first page has writing. The rest is still completely blank. Ro was immediately ecstatic. If she could learn the things in the heavenly book, wouldn't she be able to reach the peak of life? Unfortunately, the smart and quick-witted Yurua Daoist had one flaw. She couldn't read. Ro was so wrong that she almost cried. She couldn't sleep the whole night. This can't be blamed on her. After all, when she was up in the mountains gathering herbs, she only needed to remember their appearance and names. She just needed to learn to feel the pulse and rhythm. Learning the symbols meant remembering the important patterns and spells. But this book of celestial writings required her to recognize the characters herself. Ruru's little head hurts from all the worry. By the time she woke up the next day, her dark circles were as bad as a panda's. She couldn't help but ask Xiangu, how did he learn to read when he was younger? And Jingxian was stunned. Why had his daughter suddenly developed such a strong thirst for knowledge? But he patiently explained. It takes 6 years to learn to write properly. Ro's lungs are about to explode. Who on earth invented writing? Isn't this just pure torture? Cultivating martial arts wasn't this hard. It seems cultivating the Tao is easier. And Jingxian took the opportunity to coax his daughter. Everyone has to go through the learning process. Ro pouted her little mouth in dissatisfaction. But for the book of unwritten words, she could only compromise. Anyway, she had already made up her mind. If it's fun, she'll learn. If it's not fun, she'll run. Meanwhile, Feng Ruxiong, the head of the Feng family, was furious about his fourth son. At this time, his advisor Bai Hong came to report. The fourth son has passed the critical stage. However, he will be confined to a wheelchair for the next 6 months. Try to avoid strenuous exercise. But what concerns Kufen Gruxian more is whether the Yin family has given an explanation. Speaking of this, Zilahong was also furious. According to the investigation, it was the Yin family's 4-year-old girl who did it. It started because Si Xiao and Tang Xiao had a dispute. But the Yin family insists their daughter is innocent. It's because young Master Feng shouldn't have provoked a girl with superpowers. Feng Ruxiong was momentarily curious. What abilities does that girl have? Bai Hong didn't want to inflate others' egos. She only said it was an unorthodox Taoist technique. Just some fringe methods. After all, she was only a 4 or 5-year-old kid. How profound could she possibly have learned? Feng Ruxiong's expression immediately turned fierce. Blood debts must be repaid in blood. That girl and Tang Xiao must both pay the price. Zi Hong, go and arrange it immediately. Anyway, they've done this sort of thing plenty of times. They're quite practiced at it. Meanwhile, Ro is completely unaware of this. She's happily dividing up the medicine packets, then handing them to the nanny to prepare a medicinal bath. Since they tasted the tender sauerkraut fish, Old Zhou and Old Zhao's health has improved quite a bit. So every day, the two of them wait outside the Yin family's house, hoping to blend in with familiar faces. Then they seize the opportunity to scrounge some food and drink. Just then, a pleasant aroma suddenly wafted over. 2 servants were carrying a bucket of water as they passed by. The source of the aroma was this bucket of water. The two of them immediately rushed over and blocked the way. Could this barrel contain a health tonic? The nanny quickly explained. This is bathwater personally prepared by Miss Ruru. The 2 old men didn't mind. They leaned over the edge of the tub and sniffed it hard. The strong medicinal scent is truly unlike anything they've ever smelled. The nanny proudly told them. These are all rare herbs personally selected by the young miss. The 2 old men were overjoyed. If the Daoist master approves, it must be good stuff. He immediately grabbed a cup and gulped down a large amount. The bodyguards were stunned. These 2 guys must be crazy. The maid also twitched at the corners of her mouth. This is the herbal bath medicine the young miss uses. Old Zhou and Old Zhao didn't mind upon hearing this. Anyway, it's just medicinal herbs. As long as it extends life, it's fine. The 2 of them happily clinked glasses in celebration. Then, they gulped it down. This medicinal soup was more nourishing than ginseng, and it had a refreshing, sweet taste. After 1 sip, they already felt younger. The bodyguards could no longer hold back. Don't you think it's disgusting to drink bathwater? The next day, and Jingxian personally took his daughter to kindergarten. The exquisitely dressed little girl instantly captivated everyone with her stunning radiance. The silly dad, and Jingxian, felt a sense of pride. Sure enough, his daughter was the center of attention wherever she went. Upon arriving at the school, the headmaster greeted her personally. He had been worried about the little girl's first day of school. She would cling to her parents and cry non-stop. But Ruru was very calm. She smiled and said goodbye to Xiangu. Her day at kindergarten was simply torture for Ruru. The kids around her were either noisy or vain. Ruru had a headache from the noise. She didn't want to be with these kids at all. A snot-nosed kid wants to be friends. The teacher sees the little girl's unhappy face. So she asks the children to play together. A little boy comes over with a plane. He invites her to play airplanes. He even wants to share his favorite model airplane with her. But Ro's face gets even colder. She tells him to go play by himself. He suddenly realized his master was right. She was no longer a 3-year-old child. But these 3-year-olds were far dumber than she was. He really couldn't get along with them. The following lessons were a nightmare. A 4-year-old child was stopped by gangsters. With a talisman attached, he became invulnerable to knives and guns. Gangsters fired machine guns at him. She was dazed by the toddler's slap. Originally, Ro wanted to learn to read. But her father sent her to kindergarten. The children here were either crying or making a fuss. Ro felt her head was about to explode. Especially class, it was a disaster. Others couldn't even remember addition and subtraction. But Ro could easily draw functions and geometric figures. In art class, her ink paintings are truly unique. The teacher and classmates applauded enthusiastically in celebration. Even when eating, she finishes everything on her plate. The teacher can't help but praise her excitedly. At night, the room is filled with the sound of snoring. Ro is about to collapse. Isn't this just a waste of time? At this rate, when will I ever recognize all the characters in the book? In the afternoon, the teacher played games with them again. Ro finally couldn't hold it in anymore. She quickly asked the teacher when they could start learning to read. The teacher was taken aback for a moment upon hearing this. She patiently explained that the younger class was still in the cognitive development stage. The older class would start learning to read. But even then, only a little bit. Ro was so frustrated she started stomping her feet. Xianji, that bad guy, is lying. Ro turned and ran away in a fit of rage. Before leaving, she remembered she should be polite. She quickly returned to thank the teacher for their guidance. Then, with a leap, she disappeared. And everyone in the city saw stunned. A little girl leaving kindergarten on a flying sword. In an instant, everyone was in an uproar. Soon, the bodyguard called in Jingxian. Miss Ro skipped school. Now the children at the kindergarten are all scared. They've been crying non-stop. And Jingxian was instantly petrified upon hearing this. Raising a daughter is truly so difficult. He hadn't even figured out where he went wrong. Ro had already walked in. He angrily accused him of lying. You're bad. You lied to me. They don't even teach literacy. And Jingxian felt a lump in his throat. This brat skips school and still blames others. But when it comes to his little sweetheart, he can only spoil her. And Jingxian immediately suggested with a bright smile, find someone with a good literary background to be a tutor. Yet this spoiled brat is still not satisfied. She demands that he hurry up because she's in a rush. And Jingxian was so angry that his whole body trembled. What kind of kid is in such a rush? I really want to hang this truant little brat up and smack his butt. But thinking of how the final outcome would likely be me getting my legs broken, I could only suppress the thought deep in my heart. Continue patiently asking the little miss what kind of tutor she wants. A beautiful woman, a handsome man, or an old gentleman. But although Ro is illiterate, she can tell that the book seems to be filled with ancient texts, different from the square characters on the street signs. The time is also uncertain, so I can only test them myself. Whoever can recognize the handwriting will be chosen. It was hard enough to pacify the little ancestor, and Jingxian quickly made a call to arrange things. Then he humbly invited his daughter to have dinner with him. Unexpectedly, Ro thought for a moment, and decisively refused, and Jingxuan's heart broke in an instant. She weakly threw herself onto the sofa, crying. Ro pointed at him and scolded in a childish voice. You can't just keep company with yourself. You should spend more time with Sister Mo too, and that silent, annoying little brother. And Jingxian was so moved that he hugged his precious daughter tightly. What a thoughtful child who cares for others. Tonight, the whole family of 4 is having dinner together. On the way, and Jingxian tried to improve the parent-child relationship, and told a lot of jokes. He laughed so hard he could barely catch his breath. However, Ro just found it boring. And Jingxuan's smile froze. Sure enough, generational gaps are hard to cross. At that moment, their car was suddenly forced to stop. A group of cars surged around them. They surrounded Anjia's car. The bodyguards quickly surrounded Ruru's car. Their expressions were serious as they remained vigilant. From the opposing car, more than 10 burly men in black hoods jumped out. Each one carried various weapons, including long and short guns, and Jingxian immediately shielded Ruru behind him. But he felt a sense of foreboding. They came prepared. They are no match for us. The man in the mask, leading the group, waved his arm. His followers immediately rushed forward. They charged straight toward Jingxuan's car, and Jingxian thought they were targeting him. Without hesitation, he cooperated and followed them. Then, he let Ro escape while they were distracted. Notify the housekeeper to come save her after we get home. Then he rolled down the window. He whispered to the bodyguard to protect the young lady's rights. make sure to ensure her safety. At that moment, the bandit Bao Jing charged over. There were too many of them. The bodyguards were no match for them, and Jing Xian was nervously sweating. At the critical moment, the kidnapper suddenly took out a megaphone and shouted, "Ansairu, get down here. You won't leave here unharmed today." And Jing Xian immediately realized the mastermind behind this was the Foam family. Such a big setup to deal with a 4-year-old girl. Clearly, this is meant to settle the score with Foam Laosi. And Jing Xian was so enraged that his whole body trembled. Ruru gently patted his hand. He advised her not to worry. This problem can be solved on its own. And Jing Xian immediately grew anxious upon hearing this. With him here, it was absolutely impossible for his daughter to be in danger. Actually, Ro could agree to the other party. But the other side had many people and weapons. She was worried it might affect those around her. Reluctantly, Ro had no choice but to take out the life-saving talisman her master gave her. With this talisman, she'll become invulnerable, impervious to blades and bullets. Everyone else just needs to stay in the car and watch her performance. And Jing Xian finally relaxed. Having a life-saving talisman is good. We can buy some time. Ro was seen muttering incantations, and she slapped the talisman onto her own forehead. The talisman turned into fragments and merged into the body. At this moment, the bandits were already impatient. They were about to launch their attack. Suddenly, Ro opened the car door and stepped out. She was shining with golden light all over. She looked like a little celestial being. The kidnappers immediately trembled in fear. Could they really be facing a true immortal? Even the leader with the tattooed arm barely managed to stay calm. He yelled hysterically, "This is just a deceptive trick, a crooked way. What's there to fear from a little girl?" At his command, everyone opened fire simultaneously. Bullets flew like a rain curtain, but the bullets hit Ro, but it was blocked by an invisible wave of air. In an instant, it burst open like fireworks. Yet Ro wasn't even scratched. The bandits were instantly stunned. After so many years of bloodshed, they had never seen anything so eerie. Taking advantage of the moment the gunfire stopped, Ro leaped into the air and descended. She directly sent all the bandits flying. The leader with the flower tattoos was so scared he almost wet his pants. This little girl is definitely a monster. With a soft smile, she clapped her little hands. Dealing with these scum is a piece of cake. The bandits were already scared out of their wits. Without saying a word, they quickly organized the vehicles to retreat. But with someone like Ro around, it's hopeless. How could they possibly get away? She was like a little cannonball. Headbutts on the left, and shadowless kicks on the right. She beat the thugs to a pulp, leaving them sprawling on the ground. They lay there like a pile of mud. The bodyguards dragged them all back. Not a single one escaped. And Jing Xian was also quite amazed. Following his amazing daughter, he's broadened his horizons. Little did he know, at this moment, Ro was feeling so wrong she just wanted to cry. A 4-year-old adorable child needs to study. Her tutors are all 95 years old. The metaphysics experts are grateful to be her companions. They feel like kneeling and kowtowing to her. But the bossy little cutie is now feeling wronged and wants to cry. Her master's life-saving amulet has been used. Little did I know, Master was fighting desperately in the Yinwu Mountains. The demon sect ambushed Piaomiao Shenzong. After Master ordered the activation of the ancient protective formation, both sides had been battling fiercely for days. The demon sect suffered dozens of casualties. Only a few from Piaomiao Shenzong suffered minor injuries. And Master, who was stationed at the core, remained calm and steady as Mount Tai. Suddenly, a bell rang in his ears. The Master was immediately startled and pale. He sensed that Ro had used the protective talisman. This meant she was in danger at the foot of the mountain. The Master immediately summoned Ling Er. It was a small, delicate fox spirit. He ordered her to go down the mountain and protect Ro. She must ensure that Ro stays safe. The fox seemed to understand human speech. It immediately leaped into the air and disappeared into the mist. Meanwhile, Ro was still upset about using her master's protective talisman. When she's in a bad mood, she tends to sleep deeply. She slept straight through until the next day, well into the afternoon. She was finally woken up by the noise outside the window. Ro groggily opened her eyes. I was leaning against the window, looking to see what excitement was outside. Unexpectedly, I saw my little friend from the mountains. Little Fox Linger was being surrounded and pursued by bodyguards. Seeing my friend in trouble, Ro went back to brush her teeth, wash her face, and tie her hair. Only after tidying herself up did she rush out to save the day. Little Fox's eyes lit up when she saw her. She immediately threw herself into her arms. A man and a fox embraced tightly. The bodyguards were so scared they broke into a cold sweat. It was a fox, a dangerous carnivore. What they didn't know was, Ro had 2 other good friends, a black bear named Dehei, and a parrot that could mimic human speech. Ro laughed happily. He knew that even if his master went bankrupt, he wouldn't sell his friends. Then he quickly hugged the little fox to the kitchen. and asked Chef Wu to personally cook a pot of mutton for Linger. Chef Wu was dumbfounded when he saw the fox. He wouldn't cook for a fox. He also didn't know if it ate chili, scallions, or cilantro. But when Ro and Zihu praised his cooking skills, Chef Wu immediately became so emotional that he was in tears. Forget about cooking for the fox. He'd even be happy to serve Zibao stewed if necessary. By the time Ro and Zihu had finished playing in the garden, the fragrant lamb stew was ready. The little fox dug in, eating with great relish. Ro promised she would never let her go hungry again. At this moment, the family members had solemn expressions. The captured masked kidnappers had already confessed. They were indeed from the Feng family. Their mission was to seriously injure Ruru. The grandfather immediately ordered for the kidnappers to be thrown back at the Feng family's doorstep, and left a message warning them to back off. If they harmed the family again, they would make them pay a heavy price. Grandmother was worried that the other side might act out of desperation. She advised everyone to stay indoors as much as possible, and Jing Xian was also a bit shaken. He decided to stay prepared at all times. He would never let Ruru fall into danger again. But Ruru was unaware of any of this. She was focused on selecting a tutor. The people in Jia found were all top-notch individuals. There are Chinese language prodigies, experts and award-winning teachers as well. Each one is an expert with extremely high proficiency in Chinese. Ro immediately copied several characters from the book. She asked them who could recognize and interpret the meaning. Unexpectedly, the three were completely baffled. They didn't even know they were characters. Only Lao Zhao and Lao Zhou, who were watching, understood. She vaguely guessed that this was a talismanic script used in Taoism. Unfortunately, old Zhao only recognizes one or two characters. These characters need someone with deep Taoist knowledge, or someone who has access to many ancient Taoist texts. The only people Ruru could think of were four. After some comparison, she decided to go find her senior brother. After all, the Heavenly Book is a sect's secret manual. It's best to keep this from outsiders. But when Roro arrived at the antique shop, her senior brother wasn't home. Roro was furious. That senior brother is so unreliable. She was sighing and preparing to leave empty-handed, when she turned around and saw Ma Banxian, the Taoist priest from the temple. Wasn't he also a member of the Daoist sect? Ma Banxian was both startled and pleased to see her. Ruru, however, was very disdainful of him. Every time they met, this guy was either sleeping or shopping. He really doesn't take things seriously. Today, Ma Banxian came to the antique street to look for calligraphy, paintings, or ancient books. Unexpectedly, Ma Banxian easily recognized it. These characters are read as Qian Dong Di Kuan. After all, he is a descendant of the Ma Yi Shenxiang school. He knows astronomy and geography. He also understands feng shui, divination, the 5 elements, and the 8 trigrams. What he deals with are all ancient characters that are difficult and obscure. These symbols are nothing but a piece of cake. Ruru was immediately ecstatic. She had originally wanted to ask him to teach her to read, but she couldn't bring herself to let someone with such low skills be her teacher. So, she made him her personal companion reader. By the way, teach runes. Ma Banxian was so moved that he was in tears. He almost wanted to kneel down and kowtow to her. To be the little Taoist priest's companion reader is such good fortune. Ro immediately took him home. He and Lao Zhou and Lao Zhao were waiting in the living room. The two of them looked down on Ma Banxian, a fortune-telling charlatan, almost like a homeless man. Nowhere compares to them. At this moment, Ro took out the Heavenly Book. To prevent revealing the contents of the book, she decided to randomly choose 10 characters to study each day. In 6 days, she would finish learning it all. So, she ran over with today's characters, to ask Ma Banxian to teach her. Ma Banxian only glanced at it and read it aloud. It made the two old Taoists look at him with new eyes. Ro immediately announced that he would be her companion reader. Starting tomorrow, formal lessons would begin. Old Zhou and Old Zhao also wanted to sneak into the class. Ro originally didn't want to teach unrelated people, but the two old men shamelessly insisted on becoming her old book boys. Meanwhile, the family threw a sack in front of the Feng family's gate. The bag contains the leader of the kidnappers who had been shaved bald. There is also a note warning the Feng family. Feng Wuxiong was absolutely furious when he saw the note. No one had ever dared challenge the Feng family like this. But Ro, relying on her invulnerable skills and mysterious armor, was fearless and looked down on the Feng family. Zihong had already come up with a plan. I heard there is a sect called the Demon Path Sect. They will charge money to deal with these cultivators. Feng Wuxiong didn't hesitate much. After all, the family had already torn their face. No matter how much it costs, he can't back down. And Zihong also saw a new world through this incident. She wanted to use this opportunity to make contact with the sect members and gain benefits. Meanwhile, Ro didn't know she had been targeted. She was busy studying talismans every day. She was very talented and quickly learned. She hurriedly opened the ancient book and read the first page. The first page contained the 3000 Thunderstrike secret. This is the core formula of a cultivation technique. It aligns perfectly with Ro Ro's 9 heavens divine thunder spirit root. Ro Ro immediately began cultivating. Little did she know, this cultivation almost sent the entire city into chaos. A 4-year-old child who couldn't even write, yet it could trigger the 9 heavens divine thunder calamity. Experts in metaphysics have predicted that someone is going to destroy the world. At this moment, the strongest immortal sect is engaged in a great battle with the demonic path. They were on the verge of being wiped out. Suddenly, 81 bolts of lightning descended from the sky. Everyone was instantly overjoyed. The heir of the heavenly book has appeared. They can finally survive. Just now, Ro Ro has learned the 60 characters from the heavenly book. She discovered that the first page of the heavenly book contains the 3000 thunderclap technique. This is a mental cultivation method. Ro Ro immediately sat down to meditate and cultivate. She kept silently reciting the mental formula in her mind. Every character in the heavenly book transformed into a glowing golden character. They gathered together to form a river of characters. It kept swirling and spinning. Finally, it formed a vortex that shot straight into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the sky changed color, thunder and lightning raged. The violent heavenly thunder, with its terrifying destructive power, struck down at the infamily estate, claws outstretched. All the electrical appliances in the house exploded. The little white fox was also struck by the lightning. It was instantly turned into a little ball of fur. Ro Ro was immersed in the cleansing of her heart technique, completely unaware of the changes in the outside world. She herself is a naturally gifted body with lightning attributes, having awakened the power of divine thunder. This greatly enhanced her combat capabilities. Poorly, everyone else in the family was terrified. The house was filled with electric lights everywhere. Luckily, it wouldn't harm innocent people. Purple lightning flashed incessantly in the sky, but only those who cultivate the Tao can see it. Lao Zhou called the company secretary and asked. No one else saw this strange phenomenon. When such a celestial phenomenon occurs, something significant is bound to happen. Master Ma even used coins for divination, but the divination result shocked him speechless. This omen only appears in legends. No one has ever descended in reality. This is a sign of a world-renowned powerhouse's arrival. The salvation or destruction of the world is but a thought away for them. The 3 of them saw it clearly. The lightning came from the Anjia mansion. They all suspected that the powerful being was Ro Ro. Meanwhile, in the core region of Yunwu Mountain's ethereal area, countless casualties had occurred after several days of battle. The protective array of the sect has also dimmed considerably. Master's face was filled with sorrow. He had thought the sect was about to be destroyed. Suddenly, 3 loud bell chimes rang out. Master was immediately both surprised and delighted. His eyes shone with intensity. This time, he had really hit the jackpot. Ro Ro had given him a huge surprise. The master immediately rose proudly. The rise of the Ethereal Immortal Sect is at hand. The master ordered everyone to stop guarding the sect. We will disperse in all directions, one by one, until the celestial book inheritor awakens the world. My brothers and sisters were overjoyed. They all excitedly guessed who the celestial book inheritor would be. They guessed every single disciple. No one ever expected it to be her. That mischievous little junior sister who caused so much trouble. At this time, Ro Ro finished her exercises and woke up. She hugged Zihu and rubbed against it constantly. She had finally learned a new martial art. She wanted to try it out immediately. Ro Ro acted without delay. She immediately formed hand seals and chanted an incantation. When surroundings were filled with layers of flashing lightning, he kept teleporting, only leaving behind afterimages. It made the fox dizzy. She almost fainted. Ro Ro laughed happily. It's a pity the master isn't here. Otherwise, she would have definitely plucked his beard clean. But I only practiced for one night. Ro Ro's stomach was rumbling with hunger. She immediately hugged Zifu and went downstairs to eat. Little did she know, 3 Taoist priests had been waiting for a long time. Upon seeing her, they immediately clasped their hands in greeting and offered their congratulations. They must have also seen the auspicious omen just now. Ro Ro worried that the secret of the heavenly book would be revealed, so she pretended to be clueless. I was asleep and knew nothing. But all 3 of them are old foxes. How could they be fooled by her? This further confirms that she has obtained a great opportunity. She just doesn't want to reveal it. So the 3 decided to serve the little ancestor well. Maybe they can even learn some cultivation techniques or something. After eating and drinking their fill, Ro Ro had a new idea. She wanted to see how fast the 3000 thunderous steps could go. After all, it's a technique focused on speed. So, Ro Ro skillfully formed the hand seals and chanted the incantation. In an instant, a purple lightning bolt flashed. Ro Ro instantly disappeared from her original spot. Poor Linger's fluffy fur was once again electrified into an alternative look. She angrily flailed her arms and cursed. So foxes can't be beautiful anymore. At this moment, Ruru had already teleported thousands of miles away, looking at the vast and majestic mountains and lakes. Ruru felt the beauty of nature for the first time. She couldn't help but smile and laugh. I am the incarnation of love and justice. I will punish you in place of the moon. After shouting, she realized there were people all around. Zheng stared at her with a face full of intrigue. Ruru's face immediately turned bright red with embarrassment. She quickly disappeared with a flash. The tourists were all stunned. They thought they had seen a ghost. The next day was the first day of the Lunar New Year. Ruru went to the Taoist temple to preside over the rituals. After curing 2 pilgrims last time, the news spread like wildfire. Many people came from far and wide, facing the long line in front of her. Ruru remained calm as she took pulses and prescribed medicine. It was as if small issues like being possessed could be resolved with just a talisman. But when faced with especially serious conditions, she too was helpless. She could only urge the other person to hurry to the hospital. After all, she hadn't finished her medical studies. She was sent down the mountain by her master prematurely. At that moment, an elderly man with a kind face sat in a wheelchair, pushed by a beautiful woman. He had suddenly fainted earlier this year. Since then, he had fainted intermittently. But after going to the hospital for checks, all his indicators were normal. It suddenly worsened 3 months ago. His legs became completely powerless, and he couldn't walk. Ruru got up and walked in front of him. While taking his pulse, she carefully examined him. She concluded that cold energy had entered his body. There must be something extremely cold in his home. Unfortunately, she couldn't remove the cold energy for now. Only her master and senior brothers could do that. The old man's heart sank in an instant. If even the little immortal can't cure it, what should be done? In the moment of despair, Ruru suddenly said to wait a little longer. She would later go to her home to find something extremely cold, to prevent the illness from worsening. The old man was both shocked and delighted in an instant. As long as the condition doesn't worsen, there's hope. He waited nearby, observing Ruru's every move. A little child stands there, foolish and dazed. As long as Ruru lights a talisman paper, and circles it 3 times over the child's head, the child instantly wakes up, full of energy and jumping around. The elder is even more certain that the little immortal truly has real skills. Although Ruru doesn't charge for consultations, the devotees still voluntarily leave consultation fees. In just this short time today, there were as much as 200,000. Ruru's eyes instantly lit up. She never expected that she could support herself. Ruru immediately split the money in half. She gave half to Master Ma. Then, feeling very happy, she prepared to head home. The old man quickly stepped forward to introduce himself. He asked her to go home and find something that was extremely cold. Ruru, feeling guilty, hurriedly ran off. In fact, she had already forgotten about it. Soon, the group arrived at a manor in the suburbs. Ruru searched the entire building. She finally found a blue crystal in the study. It looked like a decoration. Ruru pointed with her little finger. This is it. The 4-year-old cutie only needs a bowl of plain water. They enabled an 80-year-old paralytic to walk. 4 centenarians knelt down, begging the adorable child to accept them as disciples. Ruru is at Old Master Mu's home today, searching for an extremely cold object. It's an ice blue crystal. Generally, it only needs to be placed in a cold place, or given to a cultivator with ice attributes. But Linger wanted it. So Old Man Mu generously gave it to her. And Ruru suddenly thought that she could make medicine with 9-tailed dragon's bane, to help him expel the cold energy in his body. However, this herb is unique to the sect. To avoid exposing sect secrets, she could only have Old Man Mu come to her house every day to drink the medicine. The next day, Old Mu arrived at the family mansion, and was shocked to see 3 centenarians fawning over Ruru. They were serving tea and water, massaging her shoulders and back. Old Mu quickly approached and greeted them warmly. He thought they were Ruru's elders, but Ruru told him otherwise. Ma Bianxian is the companion reader. Old Zhao and Old Zhou are the attendants. Mu Lao's smile has frozen. I've never seen such old companion readers and attendants. But with such a powerful little immortal, it's no wonder people want to attach themselves. At that moment, a strange fragrance wafted from the tip of the nose, making one's mind uncontrollably drift. The nanny brought a bowl of medicinal soup. She directly handed it to Old Mu. Old Zhou and Old Zhao were drooling. They also wanted to shamelessly ask for a bowl. Ruru ruthlessly rejected them. Why drink medicine if you're not sick? Besides, this medicine is very precious. She doesn't even have enough for herself. Mu Lao immediately downed the drink after hearing that. He was afraid someone might snatch it away. It truly is an extremely rare medicinal herb. The effect this time is simply incredible. The moment he put the bowl down, the medicinal power turned into a warm current that swept through his body. He felt so hot he was almost sweating. Old Zhao and Old Zhou saw smoke rising from his body. He was worried that he might be cooked through, but Ruru didn't care at all. This is what happens when the medicine takes effect. An hour quickly passed. Old Mu's legs started to feel numb and tingling. He was immediately overjoyed. He quickly opened his eyes and looked down. He saw that his toes could actually wiggle lightly. The joy of regaining what was lost brought tears to the corners of his eyes. His whole body trembled with excitement. Ruru was also a bit surprised. The recovery was faster than she had expected. She immediately ran over to take his pulse. She found that most of the cold energy had already been eliminated. He would be able to stand up soon. Meanwhile, old Mu's granddaughter, Nhu Nhu, was stunned. His worldview was on the verge of collapsing. At this moment, cousin Tang Xiaoxing returned, full of excitement. He bought the cake and milk tea that the little princess loves the most. But as soon as he stepped in, his gaze was deeply captivated by Nhu Nhu. She was like a lotus blooming in its prime, radiating pure, sacred beauty. Tang Xiaoxing couldn't look away for a long time. He couldn't help but drool. The goddess is really too beautiful. Nhu Nhu was stunned and ignored him the next year. She hated these lecherous and disgusting looks the most. Tang Xiao finally regained his composure. He remembered that he was here to flirt with his little cousin. He also wanted to ask who this goddess was. Ro, with a face full of disdain, told him not to dream. Mu Lao's granddaughter was someone he couldn't reach. This cousin is such a pig. All he does is flirt with pretty girls. Tang Xiao, however, refuses to give up. First, be friends, then be a little sister. In the end, she's still his little darling. So he quickly turns into a waiter. He's right there, trying to be overly attentive. And Ro has just grabbed a prescription. I want to remove some more of the cold from old Master Mu. The caretaker immediately took it to boil quickly. Soon, the second dose of medicine was brought. Old Master Mu drank it down in one gulp without a word. This time, his body reacted even more strongly. His body temperature rose sharply. A steaming aura constantly circulated around him. Nhu Nhu was so worried she almost cried. Could something have happened to Grandpa? Ro quickly ran over to take his pulse. Fortunately, it was just the ice and fire energies within him merging. The cold energy will soon be purged. Hearing this, old Mu gritted his teeth. He endured the pain of nearly being roasted alive. Sure enough, the symptoms quickly eased considerably. Old Mu was exhausted and breathless. But his legs could feel something now. He tried to stand up. Although he was still a bit unsteady, he was truly able to stand. Mu Lao was overjoyed. He eagerly began to walk. Nhu Nhu was so happy she almost cried. She never expected Grandpa would stand again one day. Old Zhou and Old Zhao were completely stunned. What kind of herb is this? It has such incredibly powerful effects. Not only does it massively boost strength, but it's also incredibly effective in medicine. Tang Xiao immediately admired it deeply. Old Mu didn't know how to thank him enough. Little immortal, you just saved my life. Ruru also thought this was just a coincidence. After all, she usually uses this herbal medicine for baths. Lao Zhou and Lao Zhao felt secretly pleased upon hearing this. No wonder they felt so refreshed after drinking the bathwater last time. They felt so revitalized. But Tang Xiao was only concerned with whether Elder Mu would still need to come for more medicine in the future. She heard from her cousin that he wouldn't need to come anymore. My heart instantly shattered. After that, I wouldn't be able to see Mu Yu anymore. From then on, old Mu worshipped the Daoist medical arts to the extreme. He desperately wanted to stay by Ro's side to learn medicine. When old Zhou and old Zhao heard this, they quickly agreed as well. They also wanted to learn alongside her. Ro suddenly began to think seriously. The sect's medical skills can only be passed to disciples. Thinking of how impressive Master was with so many disciples. If I were to take disciples as well, wouldn't I also be respected like that? Immediately, I made the decision to take 4 disciples. They would join the Ethereal Immortal Sect. The 3 old men were instantly stunned, speechless. They never even dared to dream of joining the Ethereal Immortal Sect. Such a great opportunity, of course, they wouldn't let it slip away. They quickly raised their hands and feet to show their willingness. Seeing their enthusiasm, Elder Mu immediately guessed that the Ethereal Immortal Sect must be an extraordinary sect. He was even more excited. Thus, the 4 old men, starting today, officially became disciples of the Ethereal Mountain Sect. However, the matter of apprenticeship cannot be taken lightly. The apprenticeship ceremony must be held according to ancient rites. Ro also found it interesting. After a quick calculation, tomorrow is an auspicious day, so the apprenticeship ceremony will be held tomorrow. Afterwards, old Mu asked the other 3 and learned that Taoism is divided into 2 major schools, Jingyi Dao and Xuanzhen Dao. Underneath, there are many smaller sects. They excel in talismans, divination, and qi cultivation respectively. The Misty Immortal Sect stands independent from the 2 major schools. They excel in both mysterious arts and medicine. It is the foremost sect of the Xian men. There are countless Chimenduanjia techniques. Summoning wind and rain, controlling thunder, and splitting mountains are all within their reach. Old Mu listened with his eyes wide open. He never expected that the things from mythological stories were actually real. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He must hold on tightly to the little immortal's golden thigh. The next morning, the 4 old men came to set up the altar. They placed ritual offerings on the incense table. The family members were curious and gathered around to watch. They didn't expect that a 4-year-old child was actually opening an altar and accepting disciples. And they were all big names in the industry. With Ro Ro's arrival, the apprenticeship ceremony officially began. This adorable kid, only 4 years old, has already opened a school and taken on disciples. Moreover, his disciples are all top-level figures in their respective industries. Their average age is at least 95. They all charmingly kneel on the ground and call him master. Ro sits proudly in the main seat with her little legs crossed. She proudly calls on her disciples to offer tea. 4 old men immediately plop down on their knees. Smiling, they offer master tea. Ro delicately took a small sip with a reserved air. She then gave each disciple a small porcelain bottle. Inside is the authentic elixir made from the mysterious immortal's formula. In times of danger, it has life-saving and life-extending effects. Each person gets one as a token of apprenticeship. The master surely never imagined that she, too, now has disciples of her own. The 4 old men excitedly kowtowed, their heads banging loudly. The master's move is truly extraordinary. After some discussion, they decided to arrange themselves by age. Ma Banxian is the oldest. The rest, Lao Mu, Lao Zhou, and Lao Zhao, followed in order. Then, Ma Banxian presented the master's greeting gift. It was a peachwood sword with a history of 300 years. Rora's eyes immediately lit up. Ever since she put on the Taoist robe, she kept thinking about finding a sword. The gift from old Ma was exactly what she wanted. Roro immediately took the peachwood sword and started swinging it. Old Zhou and Old Zhao were only outer disciples of Taoism. They couldn't offer any treasures. They could only give 1 billion each. Seeing this, Old Mu secretly rejoiced that he had made full preparations. Otherwise, this gift really wouldn't have been presentable. He had people collect a large amount of precious herbs and rare medicinal materials. It cost him 300 million to buy them all. The cheapest item was a 1,000-year-old ginseng root. He even got some extremely rare golden cicadas. Roro was incredibly excited. These medicinal herbs are indeed far superior to those at Anne's pharmacy. She was most interested in the herbs. This apprentice's gift is the best. And Jingxian and Xia Yuma couldn't stop twitching at the corners of their mouths. The amount of money their daughter received for her apprenticeship was more than they would earn in their entire lives. And the few disciples their daughter took in, each had an extraordinary background. Ma Banxian is an old Taoist priest from a cultural heritage protection unit. Old Zhao is the chairman of Yunshan Pharmaceuticals, and a longtime friend of Old Master M. Old Zhou is the chairman of Xingshi Group, although Lao Mu never mentioned his identity as an underworld boss. The bodyguards around him exuded a strong military demeanor, indicating a powerful military background, and these 4 notorious bigwigs were now respectfully standing in front of Ro, eager to ask their master to teach them her skills. Ro decided to start with pulse diagnosis and qi observation. Then she'll learn pharmacology. She won't keep the medical skills her master taught her secret. She'll teach them everything. The 4 old men were so happy they drooled. But as for the sect's esoteric arts, she'll first have to see if they can cultivate their psychic powers. After all, only those with psychic powers can use esoteric arts. Many people never cultivate psychic powers in their entire lives. Just as the 5 master and disciples were diligently teaching, Feng's family's master secretly sought out the Demonic Path sect. The Demonic Path sect is always elusive. This time they sought out the Demonic Path sect's talisman master, Wu Yingdao Ren. He can use 2 pieces of talisman paper tucked into his leg wraps to move with the speed of flight, as swift as the wind. He instantly appeared in the drawing room. The sudden appearance startled Zihong, causing him to knock over the teapot. The shadowless Taoist easily caught the teapot. He leisurely poured tea for Zihong. Zihong quickly flattered him. He kept praising the Taoist's skills. The shadowless Taoist was in a good mood from the praise. Only then did he ask who Zihong needed to deal with. Zihong told him it was the daughter of the Yin family. That child can use magic. He's radiating golden light, swords and spears can't penetrate him. Wu Ying Daoist laughed at his ignorance. Any magic that emits light to protect the body won't last more than a minute. We just need to outlast that minute. Zihong finally understood. So magic isn't invincible after all. But he had already prepared his strategy. First, we'll capture Ro's cousin as bait. Then, we'll lure Ro into the ambush. The shadowless man thinks this is a piece of cake. As long as the 30 million arrives, a kill is guaranteed. At this moment, Tang Xiao is still deeply infatuated with Mu Yu, unable to break free. She has no idea that danger is slowly closing in. Ever since the 4 old men became disciples, they come to Anjia every day to learn Taoist magic. But the incantations are only a few words. They can recite them backward and forward, but they still can't use their psychic powers. They're so anxious their blood pressure is spiking. Roro quickly urged them to calm down. Psychic power is like making fire by friction. You just need to practice diligently. The four old men could only obediently practice. Meanwhile, Nhu Nhu was waiting on the wicker chair outside. Tang Xiao took the opportunity to approach her. Then, he shamelessly fawned over her. If it weren't for him being Ro's cousin, Nhu Nhu wouldn't have bothered with this. Youngster still in school. She was about the same age as him. Tang Xiao was curious about where she went to university. Little did she know, the girl had already graduated. She even returned from the UK. And because of her excellent grades, she graduated 2 years early after completing all her credits. Tang Xiao was immediately stunned. This goddess has such a high IQ. As a poor student, I probably can't keep up. But he still refused to give up. He even claimed he was starting a business and asked for guidance. Nhu Nhu instantly looked at him with new respect. She didn't expect him to be an ambitious rich second generation. But the next second, Tang Xiao pulled out a QR code. She wanted to add him as a friend to start a love and career journey. Nhu Nhu immediately had a dark expression. Sure enough, he was still an uneducated rich kid. And the love in falling in love. The first half comes from the character for perversion. Tang Xiao seemed like she had been slapped. Is the goddess calling him a pervert, but so tactfully? Soon, the day's lessons ended. Nhu Nhu stood up and left with her grandfather. Tang Xiao was heartbroken, tears welling up in her eyes. The goddess still looked down on her. Then Roro went to play, flying high, with her little brother. And Jingxian, beside them, looked grave. Someone just sent a blackmail text. They've kidnapped Tang Xiao, threatening Roro to go to a warehouse in the suburbs. Otherwise, they'll kill everyone. And Jingxian isn't a fool. He could see right through it. This is a trap specifically designed for Roro. So he didn't tell his family. He didn't even let Roro know. Tang Xiao needs saving. But he absolutely cannot use his daughter as a bargaining chip. As the head of the family in Zhonghai, and Jingxian decided to handle it himself. So he called the security company. 30 million was spent to hire a tactical squad to rescue Tang Xiao. The group met on the outskirts of the city. The team on this mission is the Hunter Squad. Each member is battle-hardened and imposing. They also have experience as foreign mercenaries. But Jingxian didn't dare to be careless. This kidnapping is likely a trap. We must be careful. The leader of the Hunting Wind team, codenamed Mad Wolf, is very experienced in dealing with this kind of retaliatory kidnapping by the district. He's already devised a battle plan, and Jingxian will lead the team to negotiate and make direct contact. Mad Wolf and his team will provide sniper support from the perimeter. Once they eliminate the enemy's main force, and Jingxian can then move in with his bodyguards to rescue the hostages. And Jingxian was very satisfied with the battle plan. He immediately announced the start of the operation. Not long after, the family received the news, and Jingxian was shot and hospitalized. Upon hearing this, Xia Yuma immediately fainted. Meanwhile, Roro had already exploded in rage. The little kid inserted chopsticks into a tough guy's rear. She beat the demonic assassin until he was crawling on the ground, looking for his teeth. Those villains dared to kidnap my cousin and shoot my dad. The little kid beat them until they cried for their mothers and fathers. Just now, the Feng family ordered the kidnapping of my cousin. They also threatened Roro to go to the warehouse in the suburbs to exchange for him. Dad hid the news. He personally led the Hunting Wind team to rescue him. Unexpectedly, he was shot and sent to the hospital. The family rushed over anxiously. Roro held Xian Ji's hand, feeling even more heartbroken. Although Jingxian was in excruciating pain, he still forced a smile to comfort his daughter. Roro quickly took out a small porcelain bottle. She poured out a pill, and stuffed it into Jingxian's mouth. Good. Take this pill, and your wound will heal in a few days. And Jingxian was shocked by the word obedient. In an instant, he was completely overwhelmed. He suddenly thought of himself, when he's old and frail, being fed by his daughter. Just thinking about it made his heart sore and feel chilled to the bone. He laughed so hard, he nearly cried. But Xia Yuma couldn't laugh at all. She cried as she asked him what was going on, and Jingxian finally revealed everything. He received news that Tang Xiao had been kidnapped. To save her, he had to exchange Roro. He originally planned to bring people to pretend to negotiate, letting the Lifeng team ambush them, but they had only just arrived, when they were discovered by Zihong, and the other party was clearly well prepared. Without a word, he opened fire on them. During the retreat, and Jingxian was accidentally injured by the Feng family's gunmen. Everyone's hatred for the Feng family deepened. Old Master N's face turned black with anger. Why is it the Feng family again? Ro couldn't swallow this. She immediately wanted to go and beat up those bad guys. Before the family could react, Ro picked up Linger and activated the 3000 Thunder movement technique. she instantly disappeared from the spot. Only a trace of purple light remained. The family members, unable to stop her, were struck by the lightning. They were immediately electrocuted into a non-mainstream style. Ro darted through the city like lightning. She didn't know the way, but fortunately, Linger has a keen sense of smell. She followed the scent left by Jingxian and went after it. Soon, she and the fox arrived at the warehouse on the outskirts. At that moment, the kidnappers were drinking and playing poker. Ro immediately appeared, hands on her hips, swaggering in. She demanded to know where her cousin was. The group recognized her as the little demon from last time, who could emit golden light and block bullets. They were immediately scared and scattered in all directions. They went to warn others, but some people, who hadn't seen Ro before, immediately rolled up their sleeves and came over to catch her. Ro told Zihu that this gun is pretty powerful. It can pierce through flesh. Ling Er got scared and quickly ran off to hide. Ro put her hands on her hips again. She aggressively asked them where their older cousin was, but the kidnappers were amused and burst into laughter. With a lecherous grin, one even offered her ice cream. Ro was genuinely angry now. She immediately unleashed the 3000 thunderclap technique. She dashed forward with lightning speed. The kidnappers were instantly terrified. Even with their guns, they couldn't find her to shoot. Ro directly grabbed the chopsticks on the table, and fiercely jabbed them into the kidnappers' butt. Immediately, there were cries of agony from the scene. The kidnappers' backsides were covered in blood. The kidnappers all collapsed on the ground in a row, clutching their butts. Ro clapped her little hands and warned them, "If you do bad things again, I'll come back and spank your butts." Everyone was crying, tears streaming down their faces. With this young lady around, who dares act recklessly? So, faced with Ro's repeated questioning, they didn't dare to be negligent anymore. They pointed to a yellow shipping container. Ro immediately dashed over, her little legs pumping. She threw open the container door. Tang Xiao was seen tied to a chair, her head bowed, motionless. Ro was so scared that she quickly ran over. Fortunately, there was still a faint breath. Ro hurriedly untied her cousin, just as she was about to leave with him. The bald man had already arrived with a large group. They already knew the invulnerable martial arts technique. It could only last for a minute at most. As long as they kept shooting without stopping, they could have killed this little demon child. Ro was almost killed by anger. These people wasted the master's life-saving talisman, and now they dare to cause trouble again. But this time, the kidnappers aren't scared at all. They've brought in a shadowless Daoist from the demon sect. This little demon child can only rely on his Daoist techniques to bully honest people. The Taoist is watching how arrogant she is. The shadowless Taoist chuckled upon hearing this. Without saying a word, he rushed toward Ruru like lightning. His skill is speed like the wind, but Ruru activated the 3000 thunder movement technique. Her speed was dozens of times faster than his. She instantly teleported behind him. With one kick, she sent him flying. Wu Yingdao Ren crashed heavily into the shipping container. He almost died on the spot. The kidnappers were shocked speechless. He bragged so much, and yet he was taken down in one move. Ro clenched her small fists. She smiled and looked towards her next target. A series of screams rang out. Even the unconscious Tang Xiao was woken up by them. He vaguely heard his cousin's voice. He was startled and quickly jumped up. He stumbled out. He wanted to protect his little cousin, but as soon as he went out, he saw his little cousin was actually punching and kicking dozens of big men. Tang Xiao was instantly moved to tears. His little cousin had actually come to save him. She even avenged him. Ruru turned her head and beckoned him with her finger. "Let's go. Are you staying here to wait for dinner?" Tang Xiao twitched his lips and glanced to the side. "Don't even mention dinner. At this rate, we might as well be having a banquet." Soon, a flash of lightning appeared again in the hospital room. "It feels like my hair has been electrified into a trendy style." The Yin family knows that Ro is back, and she's even carrying Tang Xiao back. Tang Xiao is trembling with fear. This way of traveling is just too thrilling. An ordinary person like him can't handle it. Thankfully, he's fine. The Yin family is relieved as well, and Jingxian felt a bit down. He had wanted to protect his daughter, but in the end, it was still his precious daughter who stepped in. Ruru quickly advised him not to be stubborn. When it comes to fighting and killing, it's still something she's best at. "When I was on the mountain, I had a senior brother who was clumsy. My master used to say, I feel like you're two pigs. Because one pig isn't enough to describe how clumsy you are." She was pointing at Xiangu while speaking, and Jingxian was so angry he laughed. At such a young age, she's already learned to criticize indirectly. It was only then that old master asked Tang Xiao what exactly had happened. It turned out that this morning, as soon as Tang Xiao left the house, she was thrown into a sack and dragged into a car. She had been tied to a chair ever since. He was so bored that he fell asleep. The Anjia family finally felt relieved. As long as he wasn't harmed, it's fine. Ro, with her little fists raised, said, She had already spanked the bad guys' butts. If they dared bully anyone again, she'd make them pay. But Grandpa wasn't that naive. The struggle between the two families wasn't just about force. Maybe the Feng family will retaliate in business. We can't relax until the fight is over. And Jing Xian also learned his lesson. He decided to concentrate all his efforts on delivering a decisive blow to the Feng family. Meanwhile, Feng Ruxiong was furious. He never expected the infamily child to be so capable. Even the Wuying Daoist wasn't a match for him. He immediately decided to launch a bloody revenge. The shame of today. This tough guy, the leader of the Black Self-2, actually asked a 4-year-old child for training. Because the child's disciples are all big shots, they even teamed up to stab him in his lair. Who told him to be so bold and strike against his master? Cousin Roro was kidnapped. His father was shot and hospitalized. Although Roro's combat skills are off the charts, and she defeated the group of kidnappers easily, the behind-the-scenes mastermind, the Feng family, is powerful. They are ruthlessly suppressing the infamily in business. And the 4 old men learning Daoist arts from Roro immediately gathered together and murmured. Recently, the infamily has been targeted by the Feng family. They can't stand by and do nothing. Old Mu is a big shot in the military and political circles. He immediately ordered someone to handle the matter. He warned the Feng family that if they didn't apologize, he would never let it go. At worst, he would just get rid of Feng Ruxiong. I don't know if it's true that good people get good rewards, but the fire-starting technique they had been practicing for so long without success was actually mastered by Old Mu first. This is like opening the gate to the Xuanjie realm. Those who can't enter will wander outside for a lifetime. The other 3 were green with envy, especially Lao Ma, a legitimate inheritor of the Daoist school. He's cultivated for decades, yet he's still not as good as someone who's cultivated for just a few days. It's a disgrace to the Daoist school. Meanwhile, within the Yunwu Mountain's ethereal traces, the battle on the mountain this time is extremely fierce. The master looked even more haggard. 3 disciples have already fallen. As of now, 6 disciples have perished. The master's heart aches with pain. Every disciple of the sect is precious. No more can be sacrificed. The master immediately called for the youngest disciple, Xian Kong. He instructed him to take the jade slip down the mountain and give it to Roro. Then, he ordered all the disciples to act when the formation is breached. Let's break up and escape separately. Meet at Leng Yeji's place in Zhonghai. We'll meet at the foot of the mountain then. We'll fight a protracted guerrilla war against the demonic sect, until we completely wipe them out. Meanwhile, Xian Kong packed his bags, and happily ran down the mountain. He knew how important the jade slip was. They tightly hugged the package in their arms while walking. Little did they know, this scene was being clearly observed by a spy from the demon sect. The spy immediately returned to the main camp to report. The Mystical Immortal Sect secretly sent a disciple down the mountain, and they were tightly holding a package in their arms, as if it were something precious. The shadowless Taoist suddenly interrupted. That disciple must have been ordered to deliver the sect's treasure down the mountain. The sect master hates it when others interrupt. He immediately punched the person and sent them flying. Seeing him reminds me of the fact that he couldn't even beat a 4-year-old girl. He really disgraced the demon sect. The shadowless Daoist is also feeling wronged. That little girl's strength was truly bizarre. He has already investigated it. When the girl suddenly appeared, it was exactly when the Mo Dao sect was attacking the Mystical Immortal Sect. Maybe that Mystical Immortal artifact is related to her. The sect master just realized. He had fallen for the trick to lure him away. After all, who would suspect a 4-year-old girl to be the one coordinating from below the mountain? The person from the elusive immortal path is indeed cunning and sly. Meanwhile, Roro still doesn't know she's being targeted. Recently, she makes delicious food every day to help Jingxian recover his health. And she specially seasons it with 5-flavored stone. And Jingxian feels that receiving such thoughtful care from his precious daughter makes this unexpected injury truly worthwhile. Roro scoops up a spoonful of lamb porridge, feeding it directly into Xian Ji's mouth. The fresh aroma strikes the taste buds. The thick meat porridge is mixed with the fragrant scent of rice, wrapped in the authentic smell of lamb. Like a gentle stream, it nourishes everything in its path, and Jingxian is immersed in a sea of happiness. All his worries and troubles vanish in this moment. He can't help but start singing. You are the wind, I am the sand. You are the homie melon, I am the fruit. Rubbing it, I'm speechless. She thinks Brother Xian is just a silly melon now, but Jingxuan's heart has softened completely. He only hopes to be her father in the next life. Meanwhile, Feng Ruxiong is about to collapse. He was just about to make a move on the family's business, but a mysterious force from Kyoto suddenly intervened, and continuously suppressed the Feng family's stock price. The Feng family suffered heavy losses. The shopping mall they were building is facing immense pressure. The bank, the Securities Regulatory Commission, and the construction department were also pressured to terminate cooperation with the Feng family, and the only condition for the mysterious person to spare them was for the Feng family to apologize to the Yin family. Otherwise, the suppression won't disappear, and the shopping mall will have to halt construction, suspend operations, and stop lending. Feng Ruxiong didn't expect that Jia actually hit such connections. He could only helplessly choose to admit defeat. So the next day, Ro was teaching her 4 disciples Taoist arts. Mu Yu, who had originally been skeptical of Taoist practices, was also amazed when she saw her grandfather ignite the talisman paper out of thin air. My worldview was completely shattered, so I joined their ranks as a student, becoming Ro's prospective disciple. Just then, the nanny announced Feng Ruxiong had come with people to apologize. The 4 old men immediately rubbed their hands together eagerly, wanting to teach that old geezer a lesson. In the end, Ro waited in the living room with her grandfather. Feng Ruxiong appeared in a sharp suit, leading a group of subordinates with an imposing manner. Grandfather was still puzzled. Just a few days ago, they were at odds, and now they were here to apologize. Feng Ruxiong forced a smile, intending to greet them politely, but when he saw the lovely Ro, my heart melted instantly. I've never seen such a pure and innocent girl. She's like a little fairy. Upon hearing Old Man An's introduction, that this little girl was Nsairu, the one he wanted to kill, Feng Ruxiong immediately ordered his men to respectfully bow to Ro. He himself also lowered his posture. I beg Ro to be magnanimous. Let's write off the feud between our families. Ro suddenly understood, so they came to ask for a spanking. The Feng family was instantly stunned. The big boss of the black and white underworld was actually going to be spanked. But to escape this predicament, Feng Ruxiong turned around, wiggling his bottom. He was sure that the Anja family wouldn't dare to take action. But to his surprise, Ro actually raised her hand and struck. Feng Ruxiong was so scared that his face twisted. After all, he's a CEO. How could he be hit on the butt by a child? He quickly got up and dodged. He thought Ro was just joking. Then he had a mountain-high gift sent over. He treated it as an apology. But Ro was very dissatisfied. He clearly promised to spank her, but he went back on his word. This apology is insincere. She might as well go back to class. Seeing her leave so readily, Feng Ruxiong cursed under his breath. What an ill-mannered girl. But when he turned around, he found that one of the 4 old men was groveling before Ro. He was once a high-ranking official, a second-rank minister. Now, he's the older brother of a powerful figure, a big shot, one of the top family leaders in the entire country. And now, he's obediently following behind a 4-year-old child, respectfully addressing her as Master. Feng Ruxiong felt that he must either be blind or gone mad, but his reaction was quick. Immediately took off after him. Ro glared at him angrily. If you don't want to apologize, don't delay other people's class. Feng Ru was about to get angry, then felt a cold, sharp gaze. Scared, he quickly lowered his head and cowered. He obediently turned around and stood up. The little kid was holding a 300-year-old antique. He got his big shot's backside slapped until it was red and swollen. And the big shot still has to build her a luxurious Taoist temple for free. Not only is he not angry, but he suddenly feels a sense of relief. Originally, Feng Ruxiong was unwilling to come and apologize. But with a military big shot watching nearby, he had no choice but to comply. He could only bite the bullet. Anyway, a little girl can't hurt that much. Who knew Ro would smile excitedly and laugh? He immediately took out the peachwood sword and struck it hard. A sharp pain shot through his bottom. Feng Ruxiong was in so much pain, his eyes nearly popped out. The master and assistants were utterly stunned. The boss really just got spanked by a little kid. Feng Ruxiong stumbled and fell to the ground. He couldn't believe the strength of a 4-year-old girl. She even made his bottom swell up. Ro raised the peachwood sword high. She wasn't done yet after just one strike. At that moment, Old Ma suddenly jumped out to stop her. Feng Ruxiong was moved to tears. Finally, someone came out to uphold justice. But unexpectedly, Old Ma was concerned about the peachwood sword. After all, it was an antique with a history of 300 years. Feng Ruxiong almost fainted from crying. Return his gratitude. Old Zhao also advised Ro. It's not good to hit someone with a cultural relic. But Ro thought it was fine. The peachwood sword soaked in tung oil is very hard. But the old man absolutely refused to use a cultural relic to hit someone. Old Mu quickly gave his granddaughter a secret signal. Mu Yu immediately brought a belt. He also said using this would make it even more enjoyable. Feng Ruxiong was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. It felt like being scolded by a kindergarten teacher. He immediately begged her for another chance. After all, acknowledging one's mistake and correcting it is the greatest virtue. Ro was stunned when she heard this. She couldn't understand what it meant since she had never been to school. Old Mu quickly whispered an explanation. A good child is someone who corrects their mistakes in time. Ro was suddenly consumed with anger. She increased the force of the whip threefold. She made Feng Ruxiong cry out to his parents. After all, Ruru had corrected her mistakes after she made them on the mountain. But her senior brothers never called her a good child. Instead, they ran away whenever they saw her. This time, she had already shown mercy. If it were a hand, I would have slapped him flying. Everyone firmly believes this. After all, that's how young Master Feng ended up in the hospital. Roro domineeringly declared. No one is allowed to bully the disciples of Piaomiao Mountain Sect. Feng Ruxiong suddenly knelt down, guaranteeing to reform himself. Otherwise, he'll be treated like a dog. He deliberately spoke in a childlike voice. After all, only with a unified way of thinking could he be persuaded. Sure enough, Ro, upon hearing this, contentedly patted his head. This matter was thus considered settled. Feng Ruxiong didn't feel ashamed. As long as he could get the Yin family's forgiveness, it would be fine. After all, the key was for the elderly man beside them to see his sincerity. Only then would the Kyoto faction let the Feng family off. To show his sincerity, Feng Ruhong offered to compensate Ro, but Ro lacked nothing. What she lacked was something even ordinary people couldn't give. Feng Ruhong was beside himself with anxiety. How could he demonstrate the Feng family's sincerity without compensation? So he could only look to Old Master and for help. Old Master and knew that accepting the compensation meant forgiveness. He then advised the Kong girl to symbolically make some requests. But Ro only wears a Taoist robe. She also has the 5 flavored stones to eat. She has a house, a car, and everything at home. Honestly, I can't think of anything she's lacking. He turned to look at the 4 old disciples, but the big shots are lacking nothing. Suddenly, the old bird had a flash of inspiration. The proposal is to rebuild the Taoist temple Guang Master Gate. When Ro heard this, her eyes lit up. Anyway, the stone gate has already gone bankrupt. If she rebuilds the mystical immortal trace at the foot of the mountain, she could make a comeback in the future. Then, she could expand the scale. She could take in dozens of disciples and bring glory to the sect. The more Ro thought about it, the happier she became. He immediately decided to get a house. But Feng Ruxiong hesitated. He was worried she might ask for too much. Old Ma quickly assured him. They could apply in the name of the Taoist Association. The area only needed to be 2,000 square meters. This was a piece of cake for the Feng family. Feng Ruxiong immediately patted his chest and agreed. But secretly, I felt relieved. The little tyke didn't demand a mansion or anything. Ro's mood immediately brightened. She immediately pulled out a pill. She had him give it to his son. In a few days, he'll be bouncing around again. Old Manon testified that the medicine is very effective. Back then, my grandson was even coughed up blood. After taking the medicine, he got better immediately. Feng Ruxiong didn't expect it to be so easy to save his son. Had he known it would be this simple, he wouldn't have gone through so much trouble. This time, he sincerely bowed and apologized. He regretted being so domineering and impulsive before. Just then, the nanny came to report. A young man claiming to be from Nhu Nhu Mountain wants to see the young lady. Ruru was both surprised and delighted. Finally, someone from the organization arrived. And that person was Xian Kong, sent down the mountain. His real name is Ouyang Fei. Ro quickly rushed out. Isn't this Xiao Fei? Why do you have time to come and play with your sister? Xian Kong was speechless. Clearly, he's older than her, isn't he? But he still remembers his mission. He carefully unwrapped the layers of packaging. He took out the treasured jade slip and handed it to Ro. This was a special instruction from the master. Ro's eyes instantly reddened. Tears were about to fall. Is the master doing well on the mountain? When did he begin traveling the world? Xian Kong was a little dumbfounded. Master said not to tell his junior sister anything about the mountain. He could make up any reason, but he couldn't make up nonsense. So he tentatively asked his junior sister. What did master say back then? Ro mysteriously told him. The sect is going bankrupt. The master ran off with the immortal sister from the mountain next door. Xian Kong's face immediately darkened. I can't believe someone actually believes such a ridiculous excuse. Thinking about the recent hardships of the sect, Xian Kong couldn't help but feel his eyes redden. Ro thought he was scared by the news of the bankruptcy. She quickly comforted him, telling him not to worry. She herself was handling the rebuilding of the sect. Xian Kong carefully remembered his master's instructions. He must not reveal anything about the mountain. He forced a smile and nodded along. But he wasn't cut out for acting. Worried that staying any longer would give him away, he immediately suggested leaving. But before he could even move, he was gently pulled back. She said she would treat him to a meal. Xian Kong initially wanted to decline, but when he heard Ro say that the 5-flavored stone was on her, he immediately started drooling. He quickly changed his mind. He figured it wouldn't be too late to leave after the meal. Ro was finally satisfied. She pulled Xian Kong inside. He also introduced his 4 senior disciples. The 4 old men respectfully greeted him as junior uncle. They also fawned over him. They begged him for guidance in their Daoist practices. Xian Kong nervously swallowed his saliva. It was the first time he had seen people as old as his grandparents being so amiable. Soon, Ro returned with the mutton soup noodles. The unique aroma of the 5 flavors stone. It made Xian Kong drool immediately. Without saying a word, he started scooping noodles to eat. Old Zhou and Old Zhao had heard of this magical Yangchun noodles. They were eagerly leaning over the table, watching. When Ro generously announced that everyone could have some, the two of them immediately rushed over, fighting for it. They almost started fighting right there. Lao Mu felt utterly humiliated. The chairman of a large corporation, no less. He actually behaved so unseemly over a bowl of noodles. But the moment he tasted the noodles, his eyes nearly popped out in shock. This adorable child, only 4 years old, runs a Taoist temple. The chairman of a multinational corporation works as her security guard. A retired general is her salesman. The heir to the underworld personally comes to carry bricks, just to get a bowl of simple noodles here. The milky white lamb soup is rich and aromatic, so delicious it makes your mouth water. Holding a large bowl, slurping it straight into your mouth. The bowls and pots shine with a clean, polished glow. No need to wash them. Senior Xian Kong eats his fill. She immediately turned to run away, but to her surprise, she was pulled back by Ro. She still needed to digest the jade slip the master gave her. Perhaps there was something she needed her senior brother to take back. Xian Kong had no choice but to stay. He stayed with his junior sister while she refined the jade slip. He really wanted to just leave, but his junior sister was so strong she nearly choked him to death. After Ro returned to her room, she pressed the jade tablet to her forehead. In an instant, a beam of golden light suddenly pierced into her mind. Ro felt as though she was surrounded by a vast sea of stars. Before her eyes was a full map of acupuncture points. This was the method of the Bian Stone Divine Needle. The amount of information was overwhelming. Ro's little head almost couldn't handle it. Angrily, she stomped her feet and cursed. Master, you're so bad, so bad. You're deceiving your disciple again. But in the next moment, the jade slip shattered completely. Ro was devastated. There was only one jade slip for inheritance. If she used it, no one else could. But she didn't want to become a divine doctor. She just wants to fight, eat, drink, and have fun. Ro feels dizzy and lightheaded. She's stumbling as if she's drunk. Xian Kong, who is waiting outside the door, sees her come out, and quickly asks how the refining went. Ro feels wronged and wants to cry when she hears this. She only feels a headache. Xian Kong is instantly stunned. I thought for ages before telling her to drink more hot water. Ro couldn't help but recall the nanny's words. When a man doesn't love you, he'll only tell you to drink more hot water when you're unwell. Sure enough, senior brother Xian Kong is a big pig's hoof. She immediately sent him back to tell master that she would definitely carry forward the sect. Xian Kong happily ran off. I'm just afraid junior sister might change her mind and keep him. Ro almost exploded in anger. It seems cousin was right after all. Some people are just destined to be single by their own strength. In the days that followed, Ro kept worrying. How could she combine the theoretical knowledge in her head with the silver needles in her hands? But her brain was turning to mush. Still no progress. Ro collapses, screaming while holding her head. Master, you're so wicked. You always give me things I can't understand. In the end, Ro can only calm down and try to understand the mantra of the Bian Shi needle. First needle, dissolve yang, separate the needle to balance yin and yang. Second needle, Qing Long swings its tail, invigorating qi and blood. 3 needles sever the pulse, 3 parts relax the bones and muscles. Ro diligently memorized it, even during class. The 4 old men were completely baffled. Master, what are you muttering about? Speaking of which, Ro got furious. This mantra is really too difficult to understand. The 4 old men were scared stiff, drawing their weapons. But Ro said that the master on the mountain stuffed new things into her. It was a legacy of medical knowledge. He didn't even ask if she wanted it. He just forcibly stuffed knowledge into her head. Nhu Nhu listened, her eyes sparkling. Medical knowledge can actually be loaded into the brain, like software. It's truly amazing. Although Ro feels dizzy and lightheaded, she is very proud to consider herself a little divine doctor now. The 4 old men are all proud of her. The mystical medical arts are indeed incredible. Old Mu deeply understands the helpless pain he felt when he was ill. If a divine doctor were to appear, the sect would surely earn the admiration of countless people. Old Zhou and Old Zhao were even more confident. They believed that if they followed the master, they could live for hundreds of years. Old Ma, even more so, immediately got to work. He quickly asked the master what the next plan was. Ro innocently shook her head. She didn't know either. Her little 4-year-old mind was already filled with all sorts of things. No manager is thinking about the issue anymore. The 4 senior apprentices are all big shots in their respective fields. They've offered many sharp and useful suggestions. The young master has limited energy. He suggests only treating difficult and complex cases, and charging reasonable fees. Charge the rich more, and the poor less. After all, it's about helping the world with medicine. The three main selling points of Misty Immortal Trace are Taoist medicine, exorcising evil, and breaking hexes. These are Ro-Ro's core competitive advantages. Ro-Ro can't help but feel relieved that she has a few old disciples. Otherwise, she'd be giving herself a headache. But if she does everything herself, wouldn't that just exhaust her? The four old men engaged in a heated discussion. Finally, the overall plan was decided. The location of the Taoist temple was chosen to be at the soon-to-be-expanded headquarters of the mysterious Immortal Trace. It will be publicly known as the Mysterious Taoist Hall. Nhu Nhu will serve as the headmaster. She will manage all administrative affairs. While continuing the main business, the number of disciples will be increased. The influence of the sect will be expanded. Ro-Ro is the highest leader of the Taoist Hall, and is responsible for core technology output. Ma Banjian is in charge of front-end business coordination, including triage, contact, and compensation negotiations. Old Zhou and Old Zhao handle initial consultations and medicine dispensing. They treat simple cases. Complex cases are referred to Roro. Old Mu handles simple exorcisms and curse breaking. Complicated cases are also referred to Roro. Roro, however, is the heart of the core, the soul of the Taoist temple. Everyone reached a consensus and began a happy collaboration. The style and momentum are quite impressive. Roro happily drooled. That day, Roro was playing the fly high game with her younger brother, and Jingxian suddenly returned from the hospital. As soon as he entered, he excitedly announced, "Family, I'm back." Before I could finish speaking, Roro suddenly leaped over. She almost sent him flying on the spot. And Jingxian looked at his two little treasures, laughing joyfully. At that moment, a voice interrupted their happiness. And Jingxian turned his head in response to the sound. It was Feng Ruxiong and his son. Immediately both shocked and angry. How could this beast be here? The contrast in behavior is too stark. It's impossible not to suspect he has a split personality. Old Master and quickly stepped in to smooth things over. The father and son are here to deliver supplements and express their condolences. And Jingxian shot them a disdainful glance. He didn't believe the beast would suddenly have a change of heart. Feng Ruxiong is a big shot in both the underworld and the legitimate world. He's never suffered such humiliation. If it weren't for his son holding him back, he would have already made a move. And Jingxian didn't even look at the two of them. He simply focused on showering his son and daughter with affection. Hearing that his daughter's newly built dojo needed publicity, he eagerly offered to help with the promotion. Regardless of whether his daughter agreed or not, he has already instructed the company's planning department to promote it seriously. It was still Xia Yumuo who advised him not to make things too tense. After all, the Feng family has already apologized twice. Only then did Jingxian reluctantly put down his children. He turned to face the Feng father and son with a cold glare. An apology should show some sincerity. The Feng father and son quickly bowed at a 90-degree angle. They apologized for their past recklessness. And Jingxian nearly dropped his jaw in shock. Is this still the arrogant Feng Ruxiong? Even Feng Si, the notorious troublemaker, is kneeling on the ground begging for forgiveness. And their apology is not just empty words. Feng Ruxiong is pressing his son's head to the ground, hoping to personally take charge of the dojo project, in hopes of redeeming himself. It just so happens that Ro-Ro also wanted to quickly enter Master Guang's door. She needed someone with experience. So she agreed. The little girl attended the class reunion with her mother, but ended up curing the infertility of the noble ladies. Originally, Ro-Ro was busy with construction, but her mother pulled her back to get dressed up. The nanny styled her hair into twin pigtails. Mom took Ro-Ro to the party. The twins looked like a princess and a prince. They instantly won the envy and jealousy of their classmates. Both babies were perfectly beautiful. They were impossible to take your eyes off. Mom encouraged them to have another one soon. But their classmate has been married for 3 years and still can't have a child. The hospital can't find any problems. They were so worried they were losing their hair over it. Suddenly, Ro-Ro said something shocking. She claimed she could cure this aunt's illness. For a moment, the scene fell into complete silence. Then, everyone burst into laughter. They thought it was just a child rambling. Her mother quickly stepped in to vouch for her. Her daughter is a master of the mystic arts with great skills. The classmate, clinging to a sliver of hope, finally agreed to let Ro-Ro try. Ro-Ro immediately reached out to take her pulse. She infused the ant's body with spiritual energy, and in just 1 second, she discovered that the ant had a blocked meridian, causing poor blood circulation. Even if she had a baby, it would soon die inside her. Everyone was stunned in an instant. They couldn't believe this little one had predicted it correctly. Now, Auntie was even more excited. No matter what treatment, she would cooperate. But to everyone's surprise, Roro immediately took out a row of silver needles. She formed a seal with her fingers. Under her spiritual control, the silver needles whizzed into Auntie's body, the 3 acupoints in the middle. Soon, Auntie could feel a flow of energy moving. After a while, Roro waved her small hand. and withdrew the silver needle. Now, the blocked meridian has been unblocked. As for whether she can conceive, it depends on her own fate. Wan Qing could also feel the changes in her body. In an instant, everyone started to think of Ro Ro as a little fairy. Everyone couldn't stop praising the little cutie. Her mother also felt proud of her. Soon, all the classmates gathered around. They scrambled to ask Ro Ro to help them with their injections. Before long, a long line of people waiting for treatment formed. The hotel was almost full, and after so many practices, Ro Ro suddenly realized that the Bien stone needle wasn't that difficult after all. After returning, Ro Ro continued to give lessons to the 4 old men. Meanwhile, Zihu curled up beside them, sleeping. Suddenly, Zihu suddenly lifted its head and looked outside, chirping non-stop. Ro Ro quickly went over to check. She saw that Master and Senior Brother Xian Kong had actually come down the mountain. Their goal this time was to trick Ro Ro into going up the mountain. The moment she saw her master, Ro Ro excitedly jumped up. She threw herself into her master's arms. The master felt that she had gained weight as soon as he held her. He was instantly relieved and pleased. It seemed Ro Ro had been doing very well at home. The 4 old men were both surprised and delighted. Not only did people come from the organization, but a big shot also arrived. Ro Ro told her master that she was going to establish a sect at the foot of the mountain, and then introduced both sides to each other. The 4 old men flattered her and gathered around, sweetly calling her master. But her master didn't feel happy at all. Her little disciple has even established a sect. Wouldn't it be very difficult to trick him up the mountain again? And these few disciples are all frail and sickly old people. They simply can't protect Ro Ro. But before he could even begin to deceive anyone, Ro Ro invited him to stay at her home. Seeing her familiarity and dependence on the Yin family, it's clear she's completely integrated into this family. She no longer has any attachment to Cloud Mist Mountain. But seeing her little disciple so excited, the master couldn't bear to force her to leave. They could only think of another way, to make the little disciple willingly return to Cloud Mist Mountain. Grandfather brought the whole family out to welcome the master. But father was furious, his anger boiling over. It's this old scoundrel. He abuses his daughter and doesn't even give her food. But the master acts all ethereal and composed. He looks like a wise, enlightened figure. And the daughter is filled with deep admiration for him. The father was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. But the master and disciple didn't notice at all. The mother quickly tried to comfort him, telling him not to be upset. The master looked at her with a kind and gentle expression. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who would bully his daughter. Grandpa and Grandma's smiles were frozen. They could only blankly watch as their daughter-in-law stroked their son's hair. At this moment, Ro Ro was showing her master around the pharmacy she set up, looking at the 2 full rows of medicine cabinets, and the drawers filled with precious herbs. Her master was somewhat pleased. It seems like my little disciple really enjoys working with herbs. Still haven't let go. Then he asked about the jade slip again. Ro Ro proudly declared she had learned everything. She even treated over a dozen patients. Her master seized the opportunity to ask if she wanted to return to the mountain. Ro Ro was somewhat surprised at this. Isn't the sect bankrupt? The master immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. I didn't expect that the harmless lie I casually made back then would stick with my little disciple until now. Now I suddenly feel a bit guilty. How am I supposed to trick them back now? The master shamelessly claims, I was bankrupt before, but thanks to my efforts, I've risen again. Hearing this, Ro Ro admires her master even more. But she also didn't want to return to the mountain, because her senior brothers wouldn't play with her, and she planned to reopen her sect at the foot of the mountain. She also wanted to invite her master to stay. The houses here are beautiful. There's water, electricity, and delicious food. It's much more comfortable than the mountain, and she felt that even cultivating immortality shouldn't mean falling behind the times. One must keep up with the times. Dao Long once said, while alive, one should clear the road when encountering mountains and build a bridge when encountering water. I have no backer, so I am my own mountain. I have no empire, so I will conquer one myself. This overly dramatic speech left the master speechless. Who exactly is this unlucky kid, Dao Long? Why does he say such bizarre things? But seeing my apprentice so excited, I can't persuade him to leave in a short time. Anyway, he hasn't gone down the mountain for several years. So I decided to stay at the foot of the mountain for a while. Ro Ro happily jumped and hopped around. Seeing her like that, Master suddenly felt that life on the mountain was austere. Trying to coax my little apprentice back up the mountain might be difficult. Ruru excitedly told her family that the master would be staying at their home for a while. The four old men were both shocked and delighted. This was a big figure from the mysterious immortal path. As long as the master stayed, they would have plenty of opportunities to interact with a great person. This was a great chance to latch onto someone powerful. Immediately, they all showed their skills. They had the best things in their homes, brought here for Master to enjoy. But Master didn't care about these material things, only wanting to ask them the most important question. Who is Dao Long? The old man was instantly stumped. He'd never heard the name. It sounded like a formidable character. Meng Yu quickly went online to check. She discovered that Dao Long was a character from an anime, a powerful warrior who is undefeated across the world. The master felt extremely awkward upon hearing this. This child must have watched so many cartoons. She's turned into a violent little Lolita. Watching the young apprentice and her brother getting along so well, the master couldn't bring himself to separate them. He decided to check out the modern new century. Soon, Ro Ro brought her master to the construction site. The Xianmen Immortal Venerable wanted to take his disciple up the mountain, but was distracted by the delicious mortal food, and the new temple his disciple built. He wanted the biggest bedroom. The group, carrying milk tea and cotton candy, happily returned home, but I found that my mother's classmate, Wan Qing, had been waiting for a long time. She anxiously asked Ro Ro to help see the patient quickly. It turned out that they had a major client, who was seriously ill and bedridden. The doctors were also helpless. Ro Ro had just mastered the Misty Seven Needles technique. She was worried about not having a chance to practice. Immediately, she went to the hospital with Wan Qing. Wan Qing earnestly introduced Ro Ro to the client's daughter. Ro Ro is a little miracle doctor. The madam's infertility was cured with just a few acupuncture needles. And this little miracle doctor is Yu Ro Dao Ren of Kiaomiao Xianzong, a renowned grandmaster of Xianmen. Miss Li was instantly stunned speechless upon hearing this. It feels like these people have lost their minds. How could such a little cutie be a divine doctor? Isn't this a bit too far-fetched? But my father has been in a coma for several days now. She really has no other choice. She can only take Ro Ro in first. Please let father decide whether to let the mysterious doctor treat him. Mr. Li looked up, but he saw no one enter. Ro Ro could only tiptoe and wave her little hand. Only then did she reveal herself from beside the hospital bed. Mr. Li was instantly furious. Were they trying to make a fool of him? To actually send a little imp to deceive him? A little thing not even bed height. What kind of illness could she possibly treat? Ruru pouted angrily. If it weren't for Auntie's sake, she wouldn't bother treating this rude guy. Ruru stepped on a small stool, and grabbed Mr. Li's hand to take his pulse. Mr. Li snorted disdainfully. What's this little brat pretending to be an adult? Ruru was upset. He gently exerted pressure with his fingers. The pain was so intense that Mr. Li cried out in agony. He tried to break free, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't muster any strength. Only then did Ruru feel reassured and check his pulse. She quickly determined that his 6 organs were out of balance and his yin and yang were in conflict. The good news is that the 15th is the day after tomorrow. After the 15th, he will return to being like a normal person. But the bad news is that in 10 days, he will have liver pain. In 20 days, he won't be able to walk. Around 30 days, his time will be up, unless he wants to use Daoist medical techniques. Otherwise, he should start preparing for the aftermath. Mr. Li didn't believe her nonsense. Don't think you can deceive people just because you're wearing a Taoist robe. Ro was so angry her cheeks puffed up. If you don't want to watch, then forget it. Did she beg him to watch? Roro angrily jumped off the small stool. She stomped off towards the door. Once outside, she told Aunt Wan Qing, that old fool inside doesn't know his place. No matter how skilled he is, it won't help. With that, she stormed off with her bodyguard. She wouldn't save someone who can't understand human speech. And Master has been living particularly well these past few days. Cigarettes, alcohol, and tea, top-tier luxury goods sent by big shots from all walks of life. In a moment of high spirits, he generously shared his teachings with the 4 old men. On the first day, he taught a method for breathing and regulating the body for health. This method can help a person live easily to 100. Old Mu was so excited he couldn't snap out of it for days. Who doesn't like living a long life? It was his nephew, Mu Jinghua, who shouted loudly. That brought his soul back. He told his uncle and Mu Yu to try to avoid going out alone recently. When they go out, they should bring more bodyguards. Recently, things have been unstable in Zhonghai. A flower thief has appeared here, and he has extraordinary abilities. His speed is incredibly fast. He can reach 120 miles per hour. It's simply not a level that a normal person can achieve. And he specifically targets attractive women. Lao Mu thought of Ro. She mastered a technique called 3000 Thunderbolts. Her speed is like lightning, even like the Flash. In front of her, it's like a bird or turtle crawling. Mu Jinghua was shocked and taken aback. How could there be such an extraordinary person in the world? He immediately asked his uncle to help introduce him. Old Mu told him to prepare some fine chocolates. He would take him to meet his master tomorrow. Mu Jinghua was instantly confused. Which elderly person loves chocolate so much? Aren't you afraid your teeth will get damaged? Mu Yu was secretly laughing on the side. If uncle knew that master is only 4.5 years old, his expression would definitely be priceless. The next day, the 3 of them arrived at the Yin family. When they saw that uncle's master was a 4-year-old girl, Mu Jinghua was instantly stunned. This joke is a bit too much, isn't it? But Uncle's gaze told him that it was all true. Nhu Nhu could only take out a lollipop, and try to convince Roro to help the police catch the flower thief. Roro, however, didn't understand what a flower thief was. Is it a bad person too? Both uncles were suddenly at a loss for words. How should they explain such a complicated topic to a child? Nhu Nhu told Roro. The flower thief is a bad boy who specializes in bullying girls. Roro immediately promised to lend her full support. As long as there's the scent of a flower thief, she can catch him within 100 miles. Old Mu was so pleased, praising his master for being powerful. Nhu Nhu, however, wasn't so sure. He wondered if this little kid could be relied upon. That night, a young girl took a taxi home. I suddenly saw someone running faster than a car. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating from being drunk. After getting out of the car, she was about to walk home. Suddenly, a dark figure appeared behind her. He covered her mouth with a towel. The girl instantly fainted. She was immediately dragged away. The next day, someone came to the police station to report a case. The flower thief struck again. Nhu Nhu hurried to inform her master. Roro immediately rushed over with her bodyguard. Meanwhile, the victim was sitting beside them, sadly crying her heart out. Seeing this, Roro was filled with righteous indignation. She vowed to catch the flower thief and beat him to a pulp. Then Nhu Nhu found some of the flower thief's hair. Roro took it and gave it to Linger, telling her to remember the scent. They'll go out to find the person soon. Then they'll send the location to the police to arrest them. Nhu Nhu was a little worried. She wanted to send someone to help her. But Roro directly grabbed Linger, activating the 3000 thunder movement technique. With a flash of purple lightning, Roro instantly vanished from where she stood. Nhu Nhu was shocked speechless. The bodyguards, however, were used to it. It seems Mrs. Skills have leveled up again. She's even faster than the Flash. Soon, the girl and the fox followed the scent to a 5-star hotel. There are many rooms here. Fortunately, Linger has a keen sense of smell. She quickly locked onto one of the rooms. At that moment, a man dressed as a Daoist priest was lying on the bed. He was smugly thinking about which beautiful woman to visit tomorrow. He was the flower thief. At that moment, Roro clenched her small fist. She suddenly charged in. She immediately began punching and kicking him. I absolutely hate people who use magic for shameless deeds. The flower thief was beaten badly, his nose and face swollen, vomiting fresh blood. He collapsed instantly and fell unconscious. Only then did Roro reluctantly stop. She sent the location to the police and notified them to come and arrest him. The police arrived soon after. They arrested the flower thief and took him into custody. It was only after the interrogation that they learned this person was introduced here to take orders and make money. As a result, after waiting too long, he developed inappropriate intentions. Nhu Nhu immediately shared the good news with her uncle. Nhu Nhu was instantly stunned. He didn't expect that they would catch the flower thief so easily. This little girl is amazing. She truly deserves to be her uncle's master. He also wants to hold on tightly to this golden thigh. The next day, who would have thought that the master was arrested and taken to the police station? A 4-year-old little cutie helped catch the flower thief. She assisted the police in solving the case and acted bravely. Meanwhile, the master was on Choming Mountain, competing with someone. He was even at the beach, getting close to a young lady. The little cutie was absolutely furious. This much fun, and the master didn't take me along. Ever since the master came down from the mountain, cousin tried to impress his little cousin by taking master to experience modern technology and civilization, especially this convertible sports car. Master got so excited sitting in it. He immediately took the driver's seat. He wanted to experience the thrill himself. Master drove so fast, the wheels nearly caught fire. My cousin's face turned ashen with fear. He silently prayed incessantly. Oh, God. Buddha, please bless me, don't let me die here. I threw up terribly as soon as I got out of the car. But the master wasn't satisfied yet. He wanted an even faster speed. My cousin wanted to cling to the master's powerful support. As long as he pleases his master, his little cousin will never dare to bully him again. Since the master likes cars, his cousin will directly take him to participate in car races. Not only can he experience the thrill, but he can also win a lot of money. So in the following period of time, the master's whereabouts were uncertain. Even Roro can't see him. Roro immediately panicked, picked up Linger, and went to find the master. She unleashed a thunderous movement. With a flash of purple light, Roro instantly vanished from her spot. She followed the scent to the beach. There, she saw the master wearing sunglasses, lying completely naked on the beach, enjoying the sun. I made quite a bit of money racing with my cousin these past few days. His sponsor is the famous racing king of Mount Akina. A lot of girls are fighting to throw themselves at him. My master was feeling quite smug. Suddenly, Roro ran over. She kicked the table in front of him. My cousin, the culprit, was scared out of his wits. He feared that my little cousin might kill him for betraying the family. He immediately rushed to his master's back, wailing like a ghost. He begged his master to protect his own small life. To his surprise, Ro angrily accused his master of being selfish. How could it be so fun, and yet he didn't bring her along? The master, however, confidently replied that he needed to keep up with the times. He wanted to see more first, so he could tell his little disciple what was fun. For example, the two girls next to me. That's the most fun part of this place. Ro just felt that the smell of their makeup was too strong. It wasn't fun at all. She immediately covered her little nose and quickly left. Her cousin finally breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, Master was there to support her. He wasn't killed by his cousin. Immediately, he became even more charming, wanting to take his master to try something more thrilling, like bungee jumping, skydiving, and the giant swing. Meanwhile, Mu Jinghua arrived at the Yin family with a teddy bear. He came specifically to thank Ro for helping catch the flower thief. Ro smiled with delight. Upholding justice is the duty of someone from the Xian sect. Mu Jinghua was a little curious upon hearing this. He heard that Ro's sect was called the Ethereal Immortal Sect. Although he hadn't heard of it, it must be a large sect. He wondered how difficult it would be to become a disciple there. Ro only then realized he wanted to become a disciple. However, sects are very strict about directly accepting disciples. Physical attributes and talent are both indispensable, but it's different when you join under her tutelage. As long as your character is good, it's fine. What Mu Jinghua wanted was exactly this sentence. He immediately knelt on one knee and pledged allegiance to Ro as his teacher. His job was to punish evil and promote good as a police officer. So, his character was naturally beyond worry. Ro could also see that he exuded a sense of righteousness. She immediately decided to take him as her disciple. Before he could say anything, Old Mu rushed over in a hurry. He urged Master to think carefully before acting. Mu Jinghua is his nephew. If they had the same master, the generations would be all mixed up. Ro thought his point made sense. She was thinking about what to do. Old Mu took the opportunity to suggest that Master shouldn't take disciples so casually in the future. New disciples can be accepted as named disciples. Those who perform outstandingly will be personally guided by the Master. Otherwise, if everyone could become a disciple and learn the arts, then the Daoist arts would become worthless. No one would cherish them. Ro thought what he said made a lot of sense. She immediately entrusted Mu Jinghua to him for guidance. Mu Jinghua was so angry that his face turned dark. I've never seen such a deceitful uncle. At this moment, Ro suddenly took a magnifying glass and examined his face. She discovered that he was facing a disaster involving bloodshed, so she handed him over to Old Mu to deal with. She figured it would be a good practice for the apprentice. Old Mu was seen holding a talisman between his two fingers. He muttered incantations under his breath. Soon, the talisman spontaneously ignited without wind. Then Old Mu circled the talisman around his head a few times. He easily helped him dispel the evil energy. Ruru looked on with a contented expression. This disciple had finally learned the Daoist method of dispelling evil energy. However, Old Mu also found it strange. His nephew was upright at the police station. How could he possibly have come into contact with evil energy? Unless he encountered someone or something special. Mu Jinghua is currently the deputy director and doesn't need to go on field assignments. His most recent fieldwork was supervising a cultural relic theft case. He had close contact with an ancient bronze mirror. If there is something wrong with that mirror, there were more people who came into contact with it besides himself. Mu Jinghua suddenly felt a shock in his heart. He immediately called to have someone investigate. The people who handled the case last time. Anyone who has come into contact with the bronze mirror should be informed of the current situation. They anxiously waited for an hour. The investigation results were soon revealed. His subordinate informed him. Anyone who has come into contact with the bronze mirror has experienced an accident. There were a total of 11 people who came into contact with the bronze mirror. 9 people had accidents. Some fell and got injured. Some were struck by random falling objects from high above. Others were injured during an arrest. Anyway, it was all very strange. Mu Jinghua immediately realized his initial guess was correct. The key issue was with that copper mirror. Considering we've been colleagues for over a decade, he risked violating the rules. To remind his old friend, whom he cares for, that the copper mirror has a deadly aura. Anyone who comes into contact with it will face a bloody disaster. Now, out of the 11 people, only he and his friend are uninjured. As for his own blood disaster, it has already been resolved by the old master. He wanted to invite his friends to meet a master. His old friends naturally believed him. They immediately drove over. They had initially worried that they were encountering a superstitious swindler, but upon entering, they surprisingly saw the renowned Master Mu. Logically speaking, there must be a major event to bring the old man out of retirement. His colleagues immediately took it seriously. I bowed to old Master Mu at a 90-degree angle. I asked him to help me dispel the evil energy. Mu Jinghua was extremely embarrassed. He quickly pulled me to look at Ro Ro. She is the real Xianmen master. Ro Ro thought it was a trivial matter, so she let old Mu practice his skills. My colleagues were dumbfounded. He felt as if he were dreaming. The situation was too surreal. Meanwhile, the doctor informed Mr. Li that his condition was no longer serious and he could be discharged. Mr. Li smiled upon hearing this. That little brat was indeed just talking nonsense to scare him. His daughter was also there, adding fuel to the fire. That kind of person is a swindler, a charlatan. Never trust them. Mr. Li was indeed in a good mood. He handed over most of his projects to his daughter to manage. Little did he know that his daughter was constantly hoping for his death. Even his illness was his daughter's doing. At this time, Mr. Li still didn't know that the next few days would be the most painful of his life. This big shot from the Daoist sect doesn't have a driver's license, yet he's speeding on the mountain in a sports car. His adorable disciple was so angry, she pulled out all his beard. She personally forced him to write a self-critique. Recently, the master has become obsessed with the thrill of no car. He used his advanced boundary control skills on the car, and he won big. He even won a car. Today, he was speeding on Binhai Road. Then he was reported. The police received the report and immediately responded. They apprehended him on the spot. The other racers were experienced and escaped in time. Only the master calmly stayed put. He even said his car ran out of gas, and asked the police to take a look. He turned around and tried to run, but he was immediately handcuffed and brought back. Cousin was so scared, he was trembling. They drove so fast, they ended up at the police station. If the family finds out, they'll definitely skin him alive. But he couldn't just leave his master behind. After thinking it over, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and call Mu Yu. Mu Yu felt extreme disgust towards this sleazy man. She originally wanted to hang up immediately, but then she heard him say, "Master's master has been detained at the traffic police detachment." Mu Yu screamed. She quickly asked him to send over the address. Then she informed the four old men. This is a big problem, but the fact that Tang Xiao called Mu Yu here means they don't want the Yin family to know. The old men also don't want to tell Ro Ro. They decided to handle it themselves. It absolutely cannot affect the reputation of the master. But who would have thought Ro Ro overheard it? The four old men are just pretending to be clueless, saying he doesn't know anything. But Ro Ro had already heard it. Her face turned black with anger. Master was driving without a license and participated in a race. He was caught by the police and taken to the station for questioning. They asked for his name. He said the secret cannot be revealed. They asked for his age. He said he's 120 years old. The police were speechless. This person can't be suffering from dementia, can he? Quickly show your ID. But the master confidently said he didn't have it. Before long, he got impatient with being detained. He hurriedly urged the police to fill the car with gas. He still had to rush to a race. He is the famous old god of Binjiang Road. The police officers looked at each other in confusion. They recalled that there had indeed been a recent rumor about an old god of cars. At that moment, Guru arrived to pick him up. The master immediately complained to her with a pout. These people don't believe he's the god of cars. They even said he's just an extra. He's now waiting eagerly for his little disciple to prove his identity. She felt like pulling out all his beard in a gentle way. The bad master dared to trouble the police officers again. Today, she must clean house. The police were stunned. It was the first time they had ever seen a 4-year-old child lecturing a centenarian. Then Roro personally forced her master to write a self-criticism, to express repentance for her own mistakes. Mu Xinghua urged her not to be angry. It's understandable that master didn't know the rules since he just came down the mountain. But Ro had already heard about it. Illegal racing and reckless driving are wrong. Yet master was still arrogantly boasting, calling himself the racing king. He didn't even realize his mistake. Ro was so angry that she directly yanked off his beard. By then, everyone was speechless. It seems that only the master can handle the respected elder. In order not to have his beard pulled out, the respected elder wrote a heartfelt and sincere self-reflection. Only then was he finally released. But Ro was still unwilling to accept it. She asked him who had driven his car. Where did the car come from? She then found out it was her cousin who had taken the master for a race. He won a car. The 4 old men were so jealous their eyes turned green. Still so strong and vigorous at over 100 years old. Much stronger than their frail, sickly group. At this moment, cousin saw that the master had safely come out. He finally relaxed. He quickly walked over and quietly asked Mu Yu, "Your family doesn't know yet, right?" Mu Yu chuckled awkwardly when he heard this. He gestured for him to look behind. There, Ro was glaring at him, rolling up her sleeves. She immediately started furiously lecturing him. The painful screams of her cousin echoed through the police station. The next day, Dad took Ro to a top-tier jewelry store. Today was Mom's birthday. He wanted his daughter to personally pick out the gift. This will make Mom happier. The waiter brought out 10 sets of jewelry, all exquisite pieces. Each set was exquisitely crafted. They shone with a gorgeous light. Roro's eyes lit up. Suddenly, her gaze fell on a gemstone bracelet. The multicolored gemstones sparkled brilliantly. Roro immediately wanted one. This way, she and Mom will have matching bracelets. The father's heart leaped with joy upon hearing this. Aren't these just parent-child matching bracelets? A birthday gift like this is much more meaningful. He immediately pulled out his VIP black card. He directly bought 2 matching bracelets. After returning home, Roro started making a birthday cake. She specially used sweet stones today. Food made with sweet stones. It doesn't just stimulate the taste buds, but it touches the heart. It allows one to feel the sweetest moment. Roro was using it for the first time, and she was very much looking forward to its effects. On her birthday, her mother dressed up like a fairy. Her father personally put a colorful stone bracelet on her. Mom noticed that he was holding a jewelry box. Only then did she realize the bracelet was a mother-child set. The other one was for Roro. Sure enough, Mom was overjoyed. This was the best birthday gift she had ever received. Just then, Roro brought in a cake with the fragrance of osmanthus. Originally, she had planned to make a birthday cake, but she had never eaten cake on the mountain. She could only make it look like osmanthus cake. Mom took a bite and was astonished. The sweet taste and rich aftertaste filled her heart with happiness. It felt like returning to youth. She once again experienced the feeling of first love. The two embraced each other, supporting one another. The mountains have no edges, the heavens and earth are united, only then will I dare to sever ties with you. Grandpa and Grandma seem to be rejuvenated. Hand in hand, they gaze at each other, swearing eternal love. The mountain has trees, and the trees have branches. My heart rejoices for you, but you don't know. Softly, goosebumps rise all over. I've decided never to use sweet-flavored stones again. After eating them, it was too cheesy. The next day, Old Man heard that his childhood friend had fallen ill and was bedridden. He immediately took Roro to visit him. But upon entering, he learned that Lao Mo had already invited a divine doctor for treatment. After feeling his pulse, the divine doctor said Lao Mo suffered from heart failure, and that acupuncture was necessary. Then, she took out a set of silver needles. A needle was aimed at Old Mo's chest. The air around him was filled with a powerful spiritual aura. Roro watched with glowing eyes. This person had such style in every move. She wanted to learn from him too. Grandpa watched nervously from the side. After all, Roro had just started learning medicine. He was worried she might mess up in front of the senior. But just as the divine doctor was about to insert the needle again, Roro suddenly started in shock. She quickly rushed forward to stop him. If you insert 2 more needles, this grandfather will surely spit blood. The divine doctor sneered upon hearing this. A little brat, daring to speak so arrogantly in front of me. However, Roro calmly explained, without being arrogant or anxious. Heart failure can be treated with blood-activating methods, that's true, but the patient's meridians are blocked. Excessive blood activation could cause the blood to flow backward, disrupting the heart circulation. The divine doctor, upon hearing this, knew she was an expert. Immediately, her attitude became more serious. But she believed that the 13 needles of the Ghost Gate are the strongest in the world. 2 more needles and she won't spit out blood. The disease will be cured once the needles are withdrawn. Roro saw that it was useless to talk. She could only helplessly sigh. She watched helplessly as the other person inserted 2 more needles. In no time, the patient turned over in pain and sat up. He spat out blood in large mouthfuls. But the divine doctor at this moment started to undermine the situation. He invited Roro to join the Ghost Valley Medical Sect. A 4-year-old little cutie plays matchmaker for others. The fake divine doctor almost killed someone. He even wanted to recruit Roro to be his junior. Roro simply turned the tables and dug at her, to become the wife of her playboy cousin. But Qin Cheng revealed a plan. The association's membership token. Only those with this token are legitimate doctors. And joining the Ghost Valley Medical Sect requires an entrance fee. Roro saw that she was pretty and foolish. A perfect match for her foolish cousin. She immediately called her cousin, saying she'd found a pretty, foolish woman. She could be his sister-in-law. The whole family was so scared, they were trembling with fear. Even the divine doctor was struck dumb, as if hit by a lightning bolt. He couldn't understand why this was happening. Old Master and was also deeply shocked. When did his granddaughter's medical skills surpass those of the divine doctor? Old Mo's face was filled with pain as he kept vomiting blood. But the divine doctor was already too frightened to react. She followed the steps of the 13 needles of Ghost Gate precisely. I don't understand why the blood is flowing backward. At this time, Lao Mo's finger trembled as he pointed at Roro. But he couldn't speak. The old man immediately understood his good brother's meaning. He wanted his granddaughter to treat him. Roro also saw that although the divine doctor was skilled, his cultivation was insufficient. The divine doctor was immediately startled. He hadn't fully mastered his skills yet and was secretly taking private medical cases. If he's caught, he's in trouble. He immediately claimed that the patient's illness was extremely strange. He couldn't be blamed for that. Roro only felt confused. This was just a common minor illness, how could it be considered strange? Fortunately, she brought the acupressure stone needle. Roro casually inserted a needle. She channeled her inner energy into his body through the acupuncture needle. Lao Mo immediately felt a powerful energy surging within him. The ant-like gnawing pain he'd been experiencing disappeared instantly. Soon, Roro finished the acupuncture treatment. Then she began to count down. Sure enough, when they reached the count of 1, old Mo suddenly sat up. He looked completely healthy, showing no signs of illness. The whole family was ecstatic. They all praised Roro as a miraculous doctor. Little did they know, the so-called miraculous doctor was now gazing at Roro with shining eyes, inviting her to join the Ghost Valley Medical Sect. Roro was immediately stunned. A person with such poor medical skills actually has the audacity to poach someone. Roro has already made it clear that she won't switch jobs. But the divine doctor just wouldn't give up. He kept pestering her relentlessly. He planned to stay at Roro's house first, hoping to have more time to persuade her to join the Ghost Valley Medical Sect. So Qin Ching started to cry and play the victim, saying she had just come down from the mountain and had nowhere to go. Roro, soft-hearted, took her home. But just as they reached the doorstep, a supercar roared up, stopping beside them with a screech of brakes. The master, wearing sunglasses, sauntered out, saying they should seize the day from now on. Find the joy that was lost during a century of cultivation. So, Roro must work hard to earn money and support her master. Roro made a face in annoyance. Her master is such an old pervert. Qin Ching seized the opportunity to observe her master using the chi-gazing technique. She found that the overwhelming aura surrounding him was quite childish. She was instantly shocked into silence. Meanwhile, her cousin was overjoyed. The wife my cousin found for himself is really great. He immediately ran over, blushing, to scold her. At that moment, Mu Xinghua called. He informed Roro that the flower thief, the shadowless man, had escaped. The flower thief had recovered from his injuries that day and immediately broke free. He pretended to be sick and called the police to open the door. Then, when the officer relaxed his guard, he bolted out of the room. He was too fast to catch. Roro was instantly furious. He dared to run, without even admitting his mistake. Such a bad guy deserves to have his legs broken. Roro acted immediately. She set off with Linger. With a purple lightning bolt flashing, Roro activated the Xian Qian Lei Dong Ju. I teleported to the flower thief's side. The flower thief was congratulating himself on escaping the police, panting from exhaustion. The next second, he was kicked to the ground. Looking up, he saw that little devil again. He immediately took out the flag of the demonic Dao sect, and threatened to get revenge on her. But Roro wasn't afraid at all. He indignantly insisted on taking him back. The flower thief got angry too. He decided to fight her to the bitter end. He bit his finger and activated the spell. He ripped off his shirt. Then he began drawing the spell on his body. In no time, he activated his berserk power. His body rapidly swelled into a muscular, bulky form. Roro froze instantly. What kind of bizarre move is this? The flower thief's body emanated a chilling black aura. He directly attacked her mental realm. Roro instantly felt a splitting headache. Zihu, standing beside her, stepped forward to protect her. His fiery red eyes shone brightly. With a furious roar, a chilling wave of air surged from Daozi's cold color. With a loud crash, it froze the flower thief into an ice sculpture. The flower thief was almost in tears. This little ancestor is clearly cursed to ruin him. Roro immediately called Mu Xinghua. She sent him the location and notified the police to arrest him. She hoped they wouldn't let the flower thief escape again. After everything was settled, Roro picked up the great contributor, Linger. I happily returned home to watch cartoons. But as soon as I got home, I was dragged by 4 old men to discuss serious matters. The renovation of the Taoist temple has been completed. We need to hurry with the follow-up tasks. Recruitment and training of the support staff will be handled by Mu Yu. But the main focus of the Miao Taoist temple is Xianmen medical technique, Xianmen medical arts. These old men all started learning medicine late in life and are not very skilled. So they hope Roro can develop a drug for mass production, to make up for the lack of business volume. But Roro couldn't understand at all. After some explanation, they finally realized. They had been at it for so long, because they wanted a drug that could extend life. Roro was absolutely furious. Why not just say they wanted a specific medicine? Who is being tortured by this constant nagging? Little did they know, the 4 old men were just as surprised. They had asked the little martial uncle and the master before, but neither of them were willing to reveal this precious formula. They didn't expect that Roro, who seemed to only care about eating, drinking, and having fun, would be so generous. After receiving the prescription, the old men were ecstatic. After all, who wouldn't want a medicine that extends life? It will definitely cause everyone to frantically scramble for it then. Roro, however, looked at her playboy cousin. How could he be here at such an important occasion? But the master said he was his agent. He would also follow her to learn Taoism in the future. Master has already become famous. He is the legendary Bin Hai Road old car god. He has reached the peak in his pursuit of Taoism. So you're planning to try out the taste of being a star? Cousin laughed proudly. With a master backing you up, little cousin won't be able to bully you anymore. Roro angrily kicked it over. She'll deal with whoever she wants, regardless of their status. On the other side, Mr. Lee is suffering greatly from his illness. He collapsed on the ground in pain, unable to get up. Miss Lee was shocked and terrified at the sight. He's still unable to manage the company. He still needs his father's help. Then she suddenly remembered what Roro said last time. He would recover completely in 2 days, and the aching would be gone in 10 days. He won't be able to walk in 20 days, 30 days, and it's his death sentence. I never expected it to all come true. That young girl really has extraordinary medical skills. Mr. Lee deeply regretted it. He immediately ordered that no matter the cost, they must bring the little divine doctor here. The little divine doctor kindly treated terminally ill patients. The other person actually scolded her angrily. Now, they are shamelessly coming to her for help. The little miracle doctor arrogantly declared, "If I say I won't treat you, then I won't. No amount of money will change that. She's a little princess who gets $1 billion in pocket money every day. She won't bow down for money." During this time, the fake miracle Dr. Gu Qingcheng, still thinking about how to trick Ro into joining the Ghost Valley Medical Sect. Little did I know, I discovered the ornamental flowers nearby. They turned out to be the legendary resurrection grass. This is a priceless treasure. What's even more infuriating is that such a precious thing was actually used by Ro as a bath herb. You should know that many prestigious medical families would treat even a single plant as a priceless treasure, but here, it can only be used for bathing. The nanny thought she was overreacting. This medicine weighs more than 10 kilograms. Gu Qingcheng was instantly stunned. She had even been thinking about recruiting her. The medicine she uses for bathing could make all the doctors envious to the point of vomiting blood. This kind of ridiculously rich tycoon. It's truly enough to make one green with envy. Meanwhile, Ro is helping Ling Air with her hair and makeup. She makes Ling Air look like a ghost. This is a call from Mom's classmate, Wan Qing. She says that the rich merchant had another relapse. They want to apologize for what happened last time, and they're inviting her to treat him. They'll pay any amount. Roro is someone who holds grudges. If she says she won't treat it, she won't. She decisively hung up the phone after saying that. Wan Qing immediately became a bit worried. But last time, the Li family had slighted Roro. She didn't dare to say much. Her husband also advised her to stop interfering. You reap what you sow. There's no need to waste unnecessary favors. Miss Li learned the news, and was so angry she smashed things around the house. These underworld figures really think they can run wild. She immediately ordered people to investigate Roro's background, wanting to find something to use against her. She's just a little charlatan. I don't believe she's the only one who can cure my father's illness. Miss Li called her best friend Su Suner, and tearfully said that her father was seriously ill. She heard that only Xianmen medicine could cure him completely. She asked her to find someone knowledgeable in this field. Without hesitation, Su Suner went to inquire about it for her. Miss Li immediately smiled triumphantly. With her family background and connections, finding a Xian doctor would be a piece of cake. On the other side, there were not many herbs left. So, she went to her senior's shop to restock. As soon as she entered, she rushed over to her senior. She told him that the master had come down the mountain, and was staying at her house. To her surprise, her senior reacted very indifferently. He had already known about it. Ro was a bit confused upon hearing this. Since senior brother knows, why hasn't he ever come to visit master? Senior brother patiently explains it to her. A chess game must have both visible and hidden pieces. Roro is only 4.5 years old. She doesn't know how to play chess and doesn't understand what hidden pieces are. Senior brother immediately looks speechless. He can only talk about spies in spy films. He plays the same role, but Roro still doesn't understand what a spy film is. She only knows cartoons. The senior brother was speechless. He could only explain again in the simplest way. He's like an owl, only acting in the dark of night. This time, Roro finally understood. She immediately decided to come find her senior brother to play at night from now on. The senior brother was defeated by her ability to understand. Anyway, he couldn't explain it clearly, so he simply asked her what she came to see him for. It was then that Ro remembered the purpose of her visit today. She came to buy the nine-tailed dragon nightshade, but this herb is extremely precious. He gave her so much last time. Did she already use it all up? Roro was also a bit troubled. She was afraid that if she told her senior brother the truth, he wouldn't sell it to her. As she was trying to think of a reason, her senior brother suddenly looked up at the side. She saw that the defensive barrier he had set up had been triggered. Someone was eavesdropping. so he quickly tried to brush off his junior sister. So she agreed to get him the herbs. Roro happily took out 100 million. She had him exchange it all for medicinal herbs. Afterwards, her senior brother gave Roro a confidential report. He asked her to pass it on to their master, and it absolutely couldn't be seen by anyone else. Roro solemnly stored the report close to her body. Then she turned and left. The senior brother told her impatiently, "Try to come to the shop less in the future." After watching the junior sister leave, the senior brother followed the trace of the aura from earlier, and tracked it to the nearby bookstore. That was when he discovered the bookstore owner had been replaced. The senior brother's killing intent surged instantly, and he sternly questioned him about what he had just heard. The shopkeeper was still feigning ignorance, but he couldn't fool his senior brother. His senior brother immediately concentrated his spiritual energy in his palm. He struck with a palm strike. The man instinctively dodged with a blink and shift. He'd been discovered anyway. The man decided not to pretend anymore. He directly condensed his demonic energy and launched an attack. But in the end, he was struck by senior brother with a palm, and fell to the ground, breathless. Senior brother searched through his body, and unexpectedly took out the token of the demon sect. Senior brother couldn't help but sigh. Junior sister's fortune is immense. She just casually came by,